Good afternoon. During a declared emergency, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and in-person attendance limitations. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry, and when your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Panel members participating today are Neil Palmer, Laura Alderson, Stan Kumarik, and Danny Bellissimo, and I am Michael Clark, and I'm the panel chair, also participating virtually. All registered participants will be participating by audio only. We also ask that you mute your devices until you're called on to speak. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaws that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on a particular application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustment, and in the event of an appeal, the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee rendered here today, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure in the virtual world is as follows. We'll call each item in the order listed in the agenda. First off, dealing with some deferral requests or deferral possibilities. In making your submissions to the committee, when an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with a presentation if desired. Where the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to address the committee. The committee may ask questions of each speaker, may ask questions of the applicant or agent, and take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, is given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and the clock in the room will indicate, and we will notice when you reach the 5-minute mark, and then at that point we'll ask you to wrap up your submissions. When addressing the committee, please start off by clearly stating your name and address for the record, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. We deal with planning matters, not with building issues or personal issues between neighbors. The applicant or agent goes first and makes their presentation of the committee. Please note the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals made at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if being substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. Then others who are invited either in support or opposed to the application or with concerns will be invited to speak, again for 5 minutes maximum, and committee members may ask questions of each speaker at the end of their presentations. And when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent is given a further opportunity to rebut only those issues and answer those questions that were raised by the speakers, not to introduce new information. And that will then mark the end of the discussion on the matter. The application is then taken into the committee for a decision. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare, either by members of the panel or by staff, for the matters before us this afternoon's agenda?
Mr. Chair, it's I have a conflict for item 27. I'm within the notification area.
Okay. Duly noted. Thank you. Okay, so now we have to, there's some other issues, I guess. Deferral requests. We have a number of deferral requests showing on the planning memo. In addition, there's at least one other item that has been flagged by one of the members. So, and that's actually the first item up before us, item 22, A, B, C, D, and E. That is 607 and 609 Queens Drive. Mr. Palmer, did we note that there appears to be perhaps some notification? Oh yeah, this, I guess before introducing the matter, I guess Ida Evangelista is the agent for the applicant, and we have Gino Vona on the line from 605 on this matter. But is there a preliminary issue about notice? I see we have revised, highlighted in yellow. There are now 10 variances. There were 12.
Sorry, did you want me to just speak briefly to what my concern is?
Yes, yeah, to see if the matter is, you mentioned that if it is a concern and it's a notification issue, then there's no point going through on the merits. So that's why I'm
flagging. Yeah, and maybe I'll ask staff of this. So on the severance notice, one of the lots is noted as 12.46 meters, and the other two are 12.52. On the reference plan, they're all 12.52. On the variances requested, they're all 12.52. So that's not a huge issue unto itself. I guess we could just decide to amend that here if we have the powers to do that. But then further on each of the variances requested, each of the applications, item 6 is for a side yard variance from 1.8 to 1.29 and 1.26, and then the 1.29 was changed to 1.27. So to me, that means that the side yard is going to be reduced even further. It's only 0.02 meters, but it's still a reduction or an increase in the variance. So is there a notice issue there? I guess that's what my question is.
We've reached out to the agent on file. And the issue with the lot frontage is fine. We can fix that because it's making the frontage better, not worse. And for the side yard setback, the agent has advised that they will maintain what went out with the notice so that it will not get smaller. But they'll have to state that publicly when they present.
Okay, and just given the changes in the number of variances or maybe they can just clarify what exactly they're asking for in each.
Yep, they can do that.
Okay, so we'll pass over that one. That it will not be a matter we will deal with in the deferral. So the first item showing up on our planning memo dealing with deferrals is item 26 for CLEARSIDE. It's for additions, 3 variances. We have D2 in order to provide adequate time for staff to appropriately review the application, discuss any concerns, obtain potential changes, and secure revised submissions, et cetera, et cetera. The speaker on this application is, we have 2, Boris Stoyanovsky as agent, as well as the neighbor at Air CLEARSIDE Place registered to speak to the merits. Perhaps we can hear from Orest at this point about the issue of deferral.
Good afternoon, Chairman Committee. Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Committee. That's Boris Stoyanovsky speaking. We would like to defer our application. We are making some revisions as per planning comments, and we would like to defer to allow planning some more time to review our changes.
Okay, very good. So I'm just going to get on the line. The neighbor at number 8 is on the line. I don't know if you or your client have had any discussions, but she is here on the line to make submissions on the merits, and I'll just let her know that the matter is being deferred.
So the neighbor isn't actually on the line. We had reached out to her, but she hasn't joined us, but she'll be re-notified once it comes back up.
Okay, thanks. You know, going forward, maybe you can let me know, give me a heads up beforehand so I don't go through that and say, I know we have someone online. Just when the matter comes up, if you could let me know if there's any changes to the attendance list, either that would be helpful. Okay. Okay, so the matter of this, the applicant would like to defer. There is no one else on the line. Can I have a motion, please, to defer?
Danny Bellissimo moves for deferral.
Thank you, Danny. Seconded by Ms. Alderson. Thank you. All in favor? Matter is deferred. Mr. Stoyanovsky, we'll see you here again. Be well.
Thank you.
Okay. The next is item number 28, 53 Ringley Avenue. I see that's for additions with 4 variances. I see we do have a revised notice. And the speaker is Eddie Perez, and we have the neighbor at 55 Ringley on the line ready to speak on the merits. And it is a D2, the same reason for a deferral request from staff to review the application and discuss any concerns. Mr. Perez?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, Chairman, committee members. I would like to move forward with this application. I've revised it. I've sent in revised drawings on the weekend. We revised the side yard to be 0.91 instead of.
Okay, so you'd like to proceed and not have it deferred in light of the changes you've made, and that's what you're prepared to do.
And the variants are minor in nature.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll get to that. So we'll put you back in line for that.
Okay, thank you.
To the next deferral issue. Item number 37 Ridge Point Crescent. This is the reason being, it's on the screen I'm looking at. Number 3, which is for staff to consult with other city departments or external agencies to obtain clarity on that. I note there is a TRCA request as well to defer on this application. And the applicant is again, Eddie Perez.
Yeah, hi. We were before with TRCA in November, and they finally got back to us, and they're okay with the project now. As we did the revision, we reduced the rear deck, and we made the house shorter, so they said we can proceed. And also planning is aware of it as well.
Okay, because what I have in my notes, and I don't think we had anything in additional materials, is the TRC was looking for a deferral, but you can explain that when we get to hear this on the merits. So again, we will proceed.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The last one on the memo is item number 34, 1765 Keel Street. And that is for reason number 6 at the applicant's request. And indeed, we do have in our additional materials the request for additional time to modify plans. And the applicant in this application is Ida Evangelista.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. I am requesting a deferral. My apologies. I am requesting a deferral. We do need additional time to meet with the councillor and the local neighbors, because as we will be modifying the plans further. Okay. But time did not allow for all of that to happen before today, unfortunately.
Fair enough. So yeah, there is no one else on the line to deal with this. So members, can I have a motion for item 34?
I make that motion for deferral.
Thank you, Ms. Alderson. Seconded by
Danny Bellissimo.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, and so the matter is deferred as requested by the applicant. And good segue, because we can go now to the top of the agenda, and both items 22 and 23 are your applications, Mrs. Evangelista. So let's start with item number 22, 607 and 609. Queens Drive, we dealt with this briefly at the outset. There's a possible deferral. We no need to defer. And this obtains consent to sever the lot for the purpose of a lot addition. And then in applications B and C, to build on each side, and we have revised agenda sheets B and C. C. I think C might be before B. as I'm scrolling. There are a series of variances, 12 in total, and several have been eliminated. So we now have, I believe, 10. We have a planning email that's okay to schedule, and they will be formal comments to follow, but none have been received to my knowledge. And in the additional materials, we have 2 opposition letters from 605 and 611. And Urban Forestry requesting conditions 2, 3, and 5. So planning did advise it was okay to schedule, and we don't have anything from planning. So I'll turn it over to you, Mrs. Evangelista.
Okay, Mr. Chair, can I ask one question? Who was that at the beginning that was discussing the variances related to this project? Was it one of the members?
Yes, it was just one of the members had noticed that in his
Okay,
review.
just for clarification, right? Okay, so Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owners of 607 and 609. There are a couple of, typos. It's all for the better. So if I can have your indulgence, and I will go through what the modifications are to the notices.
Yeah, I stopped because I didn't point out the actual variances on the other. I just pointed out one of them as I was scrolling, so you can go through all of that for us.
Okay.
So restart the clock and go ahead.
Okay, so
there is no one else here speaking. There is Mr. Vigo Bona will be speaking after you.
Okay, so I'll just go through and tell you what what's modified. All right, so on application B35 relates to lot 7. On the page 2 on the conveyed parts 3 and 4. That should actually read combined lot frontage of 12.52, not 12.46. Okay, I'll move on now to B4.
You're talking about variance 2? Item 20?
I'm talking,
we already have that.
I'm talking about, so the consent application, B35 application hearing notice, it's already been amended on your side, because I'm just going through the notices.
Perhaps staff can advise. The one I'm looking at.
Yes, please.
I'm looking at the right one. Staff of we already have these changes, do we not?
You do for the variances, but the consent also has to be amended so that the lot frontage reflects the draft R plan.
Okay.
Okay. So through you, Mr. Chair, can I just go through and make sure that staff has the correct numbers for the various hearing notices?
As you wish. If that's something that we need to go through. And if it's not,
yeah. Okay, and I'll be quick but slow, so it's caught. Okay, so application public hearing notice B0035.
Can we just
which relates to? Okay. Well, that doesn't give me much time to do my presentation.
And reading out file numbers. Do something other than the file numbers so staff can follow along.
Right. So the file number. B
not the file number.
Not
the file number.
Sorry.
Something else that we don't have to look at little numbers. The property address or the part. Right?
Okay, so let's do. All right, so let's say this. Parts 3 and 4 should be 12.52, and I'm talking about the consent application notice. And then parts 5 and 6 on the B file, parts 5 and 6 should also read 12.52.
You're talking about lot frontage now, right? Variance 2.
That's correct. Lot frontage. Okay, now I'm going to go on to my minor variance applications. Starting with parts 1 and 2. Variance number 3, lot coverage has been modified to 36.5. Variance number 5, relating to rear yard setback, has been removed. Variance number 8, removed. Now I'm going to move on to parts 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Hold on, Ida, you have to refer that
sorry.
variance 6.
So, yeah.
So sorry. Sorry, say that again.
You know, this is something, and with all due respect, should have been handled ahead of time. So we're not sitting here in a public meeting going through 5 parts and confirming things we already have on our sheets. So I
should be deferring this one.
I'm not saying to defer, but I'm just saying I don't understand what we're doing. We're going through the same numbers. Although I did note there was one change.
It was on the waiver, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
And I noticed it on the notice.
I'm just saying I don't know what we're doing. Are we following along with something that's already been changed, or there's certain things that are changing further from that?
Would you like me to go through it with staff after I've made my presentation?
Please continue. Please continue. I think we're almost done.
Okay. All right. So what we have is we have 2 lots where we are severing to create a 3rd lot. We do have a front yard setback. However, it's taken, if you look at the street's on an angular, so the front yard setback is taken from its shortest point. But as you can see on the street, its entirety, all homes are like this and all homes have to line up accordingly. However, but on its longest point, the front yard setback is 8.10, which does comply. We are asking for a height. You'll also see that the land slopes up from the west to the east. There's a 0.40 difference from the part 1 going up to part 3, and that's why we are asking for a little bit higher of a height for these particular homes. However, they are all the same size. I did review the letters of opposition, and I know Mr. Vona at 605 has expressed concern because the new home, part 1, will be ahead of his home. However, if you look at the survey, you'll see that current situation exists today. Also, the balcony that is situated at 605 is extremely large and takes up the whole upper front portion of the house. So I respectfully submit that I don't believe that there will be any obstruction in that situation. We are not asking for a length variance. Our side yards will continue to be 1.29, as was previously mentioned. And we've spoken to transportation. They're okay with the driveway widening. We are amenable to forestry's condition, as they do have some comments, but we are not removing any of the trees at the front of the house. They will remain, and we will work around it and to protect it. And in closing, I respectfully submit that we have planning support, ECS, and I respectfully submit that the applications that you have in front of you do respect and reinforce the OP, zoning, ZBL, and does meet the 4 tests. The area is undergoing a regeneration. You could see right next door, there were 2 homes, exactly the same situation as what we are presenting. And our lots are wider than the 2 homes that were built at 611 and 613. I'm open for any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Evangelist, and I'm sorry about a little impatience, but you got in your time. And
no, I understand. I understand.
Information. So yeah, so in terms of planning, so we did not receive any. They wrote an email saying that they're okay with the application being scheduled, and formal comments will be provided closer to the hearing date. So I guess there are no formal comments. I guess he meant to say formal comments, if any. We have not received any, and. So you would advise that planning is okay with this. So in that, does anyone have any questions for the agent at this time, or we've not, Mr. Palmer?
Yeah, just one quick question. Sorry, Ida, on the revision to the side yard setback, and thank you for that. Does that impact on any other variances such as for coverage or FSI or anything like that?
So the side yard setback that you have, 1.29, that has made our coverage smaller. So in the one lot, it's 36.5. In the middle lot, it's 36. And on the last lot next to adjacent to 611, it's 35.7. So you can see we've made the house smaller. And that's why we want to keep that 1.29 side yard setback.
Any other questions? Mr. Palmer, you have your answer. Okay, so in that case, let's hear from the neighbor at 605, Gino Vona. Welcome.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee. I hope everybody's doing well this afternoon. Yes, my name is Gino Vona, and I do reside at 605 Queens Drive, and I thank you for your time this afternoon. I do have a bit of a concerns in regards to the proposal at 607 and 608 and 609 Queens Drive. I have reviewed the revised plans dated March 29th, 2022, as well as March 23rd, 2022, and have the following concerns as they may obviously impact my property, more so in regards to 607 Queens Drive. These include variances proposed to vary the perimeter allowable lot coverage, the perimeter maximum height requirement, the minimum required front yard setback, and the minimum side yard setback to the west. I recently moved into the neighborhood, fell in love with the neighborhood and all the wonderful things that it has to offer, as well as an older home that has everything that my family was looking for, including the beautiful green space in front of me. Again, as Ms. Evangelista stated earlier, yes, my second story balcony is large, but right now I have a beautiful view in all directions. Now, once these two homes go up, or three homes go up, I'm obviously going to be staring at a brick wall. And in saying that, 607 is already, like she stated, the lot setback from the street is pushed a bit further than mine. But if I understood correctly, again, I am not an architect here, I think these houses are going to push even more further, blocking the pure sight lines of what the street has as of now. I thank you for your time. I hope you take in consideration my family's concerns and the impact this will have on my property. And in submitting this letter, I'm looking out for the best interests of my family, not only for today, but our future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Vona? Okay, if no questions, we'll turn it back over to Mrs. Evangelista to respond.
So as I mentioned in my initial comments, the measurement for front yard setback is taken at its shortest point. You'll see, if you look at the site plan, you'll see that all the homes are angular and they have to align with the street. All homes on this street are like this. There was submission, albeit I believe it came late, but it does show, you'll see the actual building footprint for the area. So what we're proposing is very consistent with front yard setbacks in the neighborhood. And again, I would like to add that it is at its shortest point. At its longest point, which is the alternate, so that would be on the west side is the shortest point. That's where we have the front yard setback. On the east side, we have approximately 8.10 meters, which complies to the front yard setback. And the homes do align. We worked, Mr. Faraone worked very closely with planning staff on the siting of these particular homes so that it is consistent with the neighborhood. And as you see, the home at 605 And the home that's currently adjacent to it, if you refer to the survey at 607, that home is substantially in front of 605. So it will be, we're bringing it back a little bit further actually than what is already there. I respectfully submit that the balcony at 605 is extremely large. I don't believe that this house will impede or impose on the sites of 605 to view across the street. And the lot coverage. So the lot coverage, because we did increase the side yard setbacks, we've made the house smaller, and the lot coverage for that particular home is 36.5% from a 39.8. So we have been sensitive to the neighboring properties, and I trust that I've answered Mr. Bona's questions.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Evangelist. Any questions from Mrs. Evangelist, or for that matter, Mr. Bona, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? And there is urban forestry conditions on this application.
Mm-hmm.
Just for a point of clarification, it looks like urban forestry wants this application refused. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, urban forestry is basing that on a tree that they believe that we will be removing, which we will not. And as you know, when we do submit, we do have to fulfill all the conditions of urban forestry, but we are not removing any trees.
Okay, thank you.
Any city trees.
But you're okay with the other conditions then imposed on you by urban forestry? I think it's number 1 and number 2, if I...
2 and 3.
2 and 3.
On the consolidated, yes, we are. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Mark?
I'm satisfied that the application meets the test and warrants approval. With the lack of the planning comments, I feeling a little bit of discomfort there, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to move approval, but I'd like to tie this to the site plan submitted as it relates to the front setback, so that in fact we do get the alignment that has been described here. And I'd also like to impose the forestry conditions 2 and 3.
Thank you, Mr. Kumaric. I have a seconder for that motion.
I'll second, and just with a friendly amendment, I had in my notes that there was some conditions from engineering.
The standard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are they the standard I thought
The
there was
usual conditions I forgot to mention, yes.
Yes, there are engineering and construction services conditions.
Relating to standard severance, yeah.
Okay, so with that friendly amendment, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Evangelist. Don't go away because I see you're the applicant or the agent in the next application as well, which is 36 Albright Avenue. 36 Albright Avenue is an application to obtain consent to sever the lot into 2 undersized residential lots, to demolish the house currently on the property and to develop each half of the property as so divided into substandard lots as the site of a new detached dwelling with an attached garage, requiring variances to the zoning bylaw, and in fact a total I believe of 8 variances to the bylaw. And we have opposition from 88A fault as well as the additional materials. We have the engineering and construction services memo, conditions on consents, as well as 2 further letters of opposition from 87 AFOC and I think 35, but I could be wrong. At least 2 more opposition letters. We have Urban Forestry looking for condition 2, and planning recommending refusal of the application as in accordance with their memo, which is attached. Okay, so I'll turn it over to you, Mrs. Evangelista. I think they're more concerned with the variances here than the consent. Is that correct? But you could address that in your presentation. And just to let you know, there is one neighbor here, the neighbor from 87A Falk, who wrote in the additional material.
Okay. Okay. Again, good afternoon. I'm Evangelista. So 36 ALBRIGHT. Let me talk to you about their staff report. Staff came to us and they asked us if we would change the design as of very recent, change to a semi-detached house. Because apparently, you know, they feel that the area, the prevailing character of the area and pattern of the area are semi-detached homes. However, I've been out to the site. On ALBRIGHT, we have 3 semis, and on FOC, we have 3 semis. So, and as you could see in my submission, right next door is our 2 homes that is very similar and same as what we are presenting at 36 ALBRIGHT. Actually, 36 ALBRIGHT is even a larger lot. So staff report, in part, they do like the consent. They wanted us to change it to semi-detached homes, which that is, you know, their comment as to why we wanted to leave it. That is the reason why we wanted to leave it, because we did not want to change it from 2 homes to semi-detached. And the feel of the neighborhood is they prefer the 2 single detached homes than the semi-detached homes. And if you go through my submission, you'll see that the prevailing character in the neighborhood are single family dwellings, single detached dwellings. And consents, you know, have happened quite a bit in this neighborhood. I'll talk to you a little bit about the FSI. The FSI includes, there's approximately 9.43 square meters that's included in the FSI. And it's the area when you come out of the garage and you step into this landing area. So that is counted towards FSI. But we remove that and we have an FSI of 0.66. This is not an egregious home. You know, it's a very comfortable home. It's what the neighborhood and area is demanding. You will see that number 32 and 34 support the 2 new homes here. Engineering construction services are also in support, and so is forestry. We do.
Sorry, did you say your floor space index is 0.66?
No. It's correct. I was just breaking down the floor space index. The notice is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just breaking down through you, Mr. Chair. My apologies. I was just breaking down the FSI and why it's at the number that it is, and that's because it's including an area right outside of the garage. We do have our length. We are asking for approximately 1.19 meters, and it is to be in keeping with the neighboring properties at number 32 and 34. We do not have any properties behind us that are in opposition to the homes. The general sense of the neighborhood is they are happy with, you know, this particular home and property being rebuilt. And with this, Mr. Chair, members, I respectfully submit that what we are asking is characteristic to the neighborhood and meets the 4 tests.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Van. I have one quick question. So you look at your variances, you have side yard setbacks, but only on the internal side of the 2 lots. Otherwise, you're complying with the side yard setback to the two adjacent. This is often people come here, a lot of Mr. Romano's where they want semis, and I guess it's up to the committee to feel whether a semi is, there's a reason to try to push your client or insist on semis as opposed to detached homes with a somewhat usable side yard interior, as to what the public, the neighbors, what the ultimate homeowners want, and whether that's reasonable or not, or whether planning's concerns should prevail. That's not minor. So having said that, I'll see if anyone else has any questions or comment for you, and if not, we'll hear from the neighbor. I believe we have a neighbor from 87A Falk.
I have a quick question, and this may or may not be particularly relevant, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Your client, is it the same developer that developed the I'll call them the salt and pepper homes to the directly adjacent?
It's an acquaintance of.
It's an acquaintance of, so another developer. Okay, well, yeah, okay. I just wanted to ask, that's all. Because I do like the salt and pepper. I do like the salt and pepper shakers. Thank you.
They are quite nice.
So anyway, let's hear from the neighbor, and I guess I just looked at where he is on the Falk is sort of again a key lot situation to this property. So again, we'll hear what the concerns of that neighbor is, and you'll have a chance to respond, obviously. So Robert Arruda, Mr. Arruda, welcome.
Good afternoon. Oh, sorry. Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. I trust everyone's doing well. My name is Robert Arruda, and I currently reside at 87A Foch. For the record, in addition to my letter dated March the 31st, I wish to express our concern regarding the proposed structures, specifically the proposed Western house. As it stands, the proposed structure would have what we feel is a negative impact on the neighbors whose backyard back into 36 ALBRIGHT, of which I am one. The proposed building would negatively impact shadows, privacies, and just overall the enjoyment of our living space and backyards. We certainly welcome new construction in our neighborhood, and we are aware that existing similar structures in the neighborhood exist. However, typically these structures are built between other homes, which is not the case for the proposed Western building. That particular house would, as proposed for Lot 2, would overlook, and it would loom over several backyards. As the immediate neighbor, I do feel that we are in a good position to evaluate the detriments of said construction, and we do strongly oppose as it stands. If the committee sees fit to grant approval to sever the lot, which we're not opposed to or strictly opposed to, I do ask that the committee deny the request for the variance section of section 3 in respect to the maximum permitted building height, as we feel that it is neither minor nor is it desirable.
Okay, that's variance 7, by the way, on our.
Oh, sorry, variance 7.
It's okay. Just want to make sure. Yeah, you don't think they should get. I was going to ask you, how are you affected? Because you're the key lot guys. You're going to be affected whatever's there. But I'm saying I wanted to know which of the variances.
Yeah, and that one in particular is really the height, and so yeah, that's the one that we strongly object to, if you will. Yeah, and that's really just what I wanted to express. So I thank the committee for your time and consideration, and I wish you all well.
Hey, thank you, sir. So the issue is, I guess, is you're in a key lot situation. Like you said, normally these things happen in the middle of a lot. The fact that it's a key lot, like some of the, you just had another application, we were dealing with the same thing. It affects all the neighbors, and I called on Foch. I called it Fox. My apologies.
No problem.
Pronunciation, but you're all affected because you're all where you are. You can't change that.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking to my neighbors south of me, they all pretty much felt the same way. So I thought it was important for myself to voice, if not officially, certainly unofficially, for my neighbors as well.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Ruda, for taking the time to stay on the line and let us know what your concerns. Let's see if the members have any questions for you. And if not, I'll give it over back to Mrs. Evangelista to respond.
Well, no questions. Well, I thank you again.
Okay. Stay tuned. Mrs. Evangelista, would you like to respond?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So we are asking for a height of 8.77, which does go to the very top of the parapet. But I would like to add that if I were to add a roof to this home, it would be much higher. So I respectfully believe that putting a hat on a home like this, or just having a peaked roof, and then that also lends us to having a semi-detached with a peak roof, would be much more obtrusive, would block sunlight, air. So we are asking for the 8.77. However, I don't believe, and we have no balconies on the second floor. We have, if there's any, we can always put a opaque screening on the deck, which is off of the kitchen area for some privacy. And if this would be a much more obtrusive house if it was a peaked home. I respectfully submit that it will not infringe, as currently right now there is even a shed at the back of the home.
Okay. Any further follow-up questions? Actually, I just want to point, I just was reading the planning report again, and it was set right near the end. They mentioned that they actually say that the consent application, the severed lots would result in lot frontages in areas that are typically larger than previously severed approvals in the area.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
So I don't understand how then they go on to say this, that a single is not appropriate if they granted. Those other ones they're talking about were singles or semis or a combination?
My apologies. Can you repeat that, sir?
What I'm saying is that
the reference?
in the immediate context, smaller lots have been created than the ones you're proposing to create.
And with single-family homes.
I see.
No, and yes, and I've included a photo in my submission that shows you predominantly the homes, even of smaller lots, have 2 single-family dwellings.
So they go in and they admit that, and then they say, well, these are even larger, what you're creating, than the typical severance lots, but we want semis. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Any further questions for Mrs. Evangelista? And if not, if someone's ready to weigh in with a motion, we do have the engineering conditions and urban forestry.
I'm ready for motion. I'm comfortable with the severances. They're building appropriate size lots. And the variances requested, in my opinion, are minor in nature and meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act. So I move for approval, subject to standard engineering conditions, forestry condition number 2, and that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. A seconder for Mr. Palmer's motion.
Be happy to second that one.
Okay, that was a tie, but okay. Ms. Alderson. Seconded that. All in favor? I didn't see Mr. Komarik's hand went up or not?
I'm voting opposed.
Okay, so the motion carries 4-1. I thought it didn't go up, so good thing I mentioned.
Yeah, no, I'm actually agree with planning on this. So it would be more appropriate for semis, but that's my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Evangelista. The application has been approved. Okay, I think we lost her now. Okay, next application is item number 24, 878A Weston Road. It's an application to print 2 additional dwelling units for a total of 5 dwelling units being provided. There are 4 variances. And we have a cover letter regarding revisions that don't affect the variances. Planning is requesting a refusal. Inter alia, their concerns about the quality and livability of the property, and we have the cover letter, and we have TRCA. I believe they don't have any comments, no objection, but the permit is required. And the applicant on this application is Amir Roba. Sorry about the pronunciation.
No
Hello,
problem.
sir.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
So my name is Amir Roba. I'm here in behalf of the property owner from YEJ Studio. I believe we have a very simple application, and the planning department are not taking into consideration many.
Sir, my apologies. I did have additional, wanted to state for the record the additional concern of planning so that you can respond to that, is that not only I wrote inter alia, the quality and livability, but also with the completeness of the submitted application, specifically floor plans and rear elevations. It doesn't show unit sizes or unit layouts, particularly concerned with middle, second floor unit, no windows or skylights. So they're saying that your application doesn't give enough specificity for them to comment.
Well,
there are no existing windows on the east side. There's no washroom shown for the above grade residential. These are serious. You're asking for the privilege of creating additional units, and yet you're not providing them with enough information to assess what you're doing there.
None of these units on the upper floors are proposed units. These are existing units. We did not show the floor plans of these units because we're not doing any alteration, any modification, any additional units there. We're only adding one unit in the basement, which we showed full details of it. Planning department did not ask us for any floor plan of this until March 25th, which is we have this application for almost a year now. In addition to that, we've supplied the planning department with detailed floor plan the next day they asked for it. And I believe we have a note that the floor plan of all of the existing 4 units are included in the file now. So
they're not here for the committee. There was nothing, I believe, on this file in our additional materials provided yesterday. I'm just telling you what it says. And
so my response, sorry to cut you off. My response to these concerns from the planning department are 2 things. Number one, we are not proposing the upper 4 units. These are existing, and it says here in their notes that these are 4 units are lawfully existing. So there shouldn't be any concern or any discussion in regards to those 4 units, which brings us back to the same thing about living conditions, quality of living, and any of that. That is an existing condition. We're not changing any of this. We're only proposing 1 additional unit in the basement. Okay.
Sure, there are 4. I'm saying there are 4 variances here. One of them is for a maximum of 5 units, 5 dwelling units, whereas a maximum permitted of 3. I don't see anything them saying about this. But all I'm just saying is, especially when it's a matter of planning and also life safety and whether these units comply or have the right size, I would, you'd figure you want to give as much information. So,
but we provided them with all of the information that they asked for.
Okay. Anyway, if you want to proceed with your presentation, please do, and I'll see if the members have any questions for you.
Okay. So again, the way that the comments should be worded from the planning department, that we have 4 existing lawfully units, and we are proposing one additional unit. Now, the other concern is that having dwelling units in this building. This building already have dwelling units for many, many, many years. So we're not changing the status of the building. We're just adding 1 unit. In terms of the number of units, we've included some pictures. in our presentation. I don't know if you can upload that. 878 Western Road. So our address is 878A Western Road. So next door, 878 Western Road has a commercial unit on the main floor and 5 to 7 dwelling units on the upper floors. 876 Western Road, commercial on the ground floor, 4 units in the upper floors. So this is within the area. We're not proposing anything that's outside the norm in this area. The last thing I will talk about is the carport in the backyard, which they're saying that it's 1.1 meter setback where 6 meter is required. And we included pictures in our presentation as well. Every building that's facing that laneway has a garage, and that garage is right on the property line. This is the only building that does not have a garage due to the depth of the building. So garage cannot be proposed here. That's why the owner requested a carport. So again, this is within the normal in this area. There was no objections from neighbors, no objections from TRCA. And the reason for refusal here from planning, I don't think it's proper for this type of application.
So where's this additional unit being built?
I'm sorry?
Where's this additional unit being placed?
In the basement.
In the basement, okay. And you get up the plans of that unit, but not the, and that's what they've written. Anyway, let's see if you want to finish up, let's see if, I don't see what your time is. I believe you're over 5 minutes. Community.
I'm done. I'm open.
For you, sir. Sorry?
I have a question. If the applicant has finished his presentation, I have a question.
Yes, I'm done.
So I'm just wondering, can you tell me a little bit about the light, the windows that are available to this basement unit? Are there window wells there? What sort of light is available to this unit?
We complied with all the codes required for light, for fresh air, window calculation. Everything has been proposed is to code. In terms of window wells and details, sorry.
I'd like to know if there's some sort of, in the event of fire, you know, is there a window that can be broken and somebody can leave through that window?
Of course. That's one of the requirements by code to have an egress window.
Okay. Well, then I just wanted that confirmed by you, actually, if that's possible.
Of course. It's on sheet A06. So we have a new window proposed in the master bedroom, and that will become the egress window. And then we have the second exit, which is the walkout in the back.
Okay, thank you. I see it now.
Any other questions?
Danny Belismo, I just want a clarification. There are plans of the other floors, and I can see them. There are no dimensions, but so when you discussed it with planning, did you not emphasize that they wanted dimensions of the existing condition? But we're not here to deal with the existing condition. We're only here to deal with the basement. And based on what I can see, there are windows in the basement. A quick observation, it does meet building code regulations. And planning is talking a lot about building code regulations in their report, which maybe are relevant, probably not in this committee. So I think the question boils down to, do we want to support extra units in the basement? And I think in this case, the basement has windows, has exits, has stairs going in and out. And so I would like to move for approval of the variances before us. I don't think there are any conditions I can remember.
Correct. I don't believe there is. Thank you, Mr. Belismo. A second for Mr. Belismo's motion. Mr. Palmer. All in
I just-
favor?
Just before we approve of this, can I just clarify that the two commercial units at grade will remain at grade? Is the commercial
That's what it
there's a
said.
pizza, I think there's a pizza place and a variety store, is that correct?
The variety store's next door. It's not part of this property.
It's not
Pizza
part of the
place.
same building.
The pizza is though.
The pizza place is. I'm just wanted to confirm that is staying. So you're not planning on putting residential at grade. You're just planning on keeping commercial at grade. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm opposed. The motion carries 4-1. Thank you. Next application is item number 25.
So sorry, that means it's approved?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank
it's
you very much.
approved. Thank you. Majority rules. Item number 35 is 3 Farnsworth Drive. And
25.
sorry, you're right, 25. Yeah, wishful thinking. Sorry. This is to construct a new 1-story attached garage on the north side of the existing dwelling. We have a cover letter, support from 685 and 1 Farnsworth, and that's all we have. The speaker is Ross Stefina, agent.
Yes,
No
good afternoon.
conditions. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. Thank you for hearing our application. My name is Ross Stefina. I reside at 9 Wolf Court in Thornhill, and I'm the acting agent for the owners at 3 Farnsworth.
Okay, I don't think we need, yes, sir, I don't think we need a fulsome presentation. So might you just
Fair enough.
keep it brief, let us know what you need, what you're looking for. I see it's a modest 1-story addition, modest coverage. I assume the location on the north side lot line, variance number 2, is an existing condition?
No, not an existing condition.
Okay.
However, the most of the buildings on that street that have an attached garage fall under the similar category, simply because the original construction of the homes that were there never had garages and had a limiting effect to the one side. So there's multiple. The majority of them are within that 2-foot side yard or 6.6 meter.
We see your support and the cover letter. So just let's see if any of the members have any questions or if someone's ready to weigh in with a motion.
I'm ready to weigh in with a motion if no one has any questions.
Yes.
Find the variances requested are minor and meet the 4 tests and happy to move for approval. I don't believe there are any conditions.
Seconded.
Danny Bellissimo, second.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. DeFino.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
You too. We'll move on then to item number 36. 26 has been deferred. So 27, Secretary Treasurer Bartosik has a conflict in this application. She presides in the notification area in the vicinity. 76 Uno Drive. It's for a 2-story rear addition with 2 variances. We have absolutely nothing before us other than urban forestry looking for condition number 1. And the speaker for this application is David Smith, agent for the applicant. Mr. Smith, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Brief introduction. My name is David Smith here representing the homeowners at 76 Uno. Very straightforward application. For the sake of expediency, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Smith? Again, we have the 2 variances and nothing on file other than the urban forestry number 1.
Danny Bellissimo is ready to make a motion if there are no further questions.
Yes, please.
I find that the variances are minor in nature, move for approval. The variance is subject to the condition by forestry.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Seconded by Mr. Merrick. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 28 has been deferred, so on to number 29, which is 71 Rathburn Drive.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, 28 was not deferred. There was a deferral request, but the applicant.
Oh,
decided
yes,
to
sorry.
proceed.
Oh, okay, sorry. My bad, my apologies to Mr. Perez. Okay, Mr. Perez, we have, this is an application. We have a revised notice for agenda highlighted to show changes. So this is for a two-story east side addition, including an attached garage, a second-story addition above the existing dwelling, new front porch, and a new rear deck. We have 4 variances. One of them has been revised. And all we have is an arborist report. In the additional materials, we have a revised note. We have the revised notice, I guess. Is that a further revised notice? Mr. Perez?
Yeah, hi, Chairman. Good afternoon. I'm here on behalf of the owners. And we have also revised number 2. We now are asking for 0.91.
So it's been further reviews from 0.71 to 0.91. I just haven't opened up the additional materials.
Yeah.
Like you further revised it. Okay.
Yes.
No one else here with, oh, there is. It's number 28. Oh, yeah, we do have a neighbor present on this application. So why don't you briefly run through what this is all about? We have a neighbor next door.
Yeah, so we're proposing to, as you said, a 2-story addition at the back and then putting a second story on top. We have a variance for the floor index, which is 0.45. We're at 0.6. And then we had the side yard, which was at 0.61 on the east side, and we've changed it to 0.91. So we put it in line with the rest of the building. And we also had a letter from the neighbor that they were fine with that previously. And then we have 0.09 on the other neighbor, which is here to speak, and that is existing situation. We're just going in line with the existing. And then we have the side yard for the wood deck at the back. The height, main height, we're okay. The only height we have is the underside of soffit. Instead of 6.5, we have 6.89, which is modest. I feel that this application meets the 4 test. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Perez?
Danny Bellis was a quick question, clarification. Was planning, I believe, said they wanted to defer this. Is that correct?
Yeah, they said that.
Can you tell us why they said
Pardon?
that? Can you tell us why they want to defer? I didn't understand it.
Yeah, on that one side, they said that they wanted a 1.2, but this lot is undersized because they're saying from 12 to 15 meters. Our lot is only 10.19. It's a smaller lot, and if you can put up the first floor plan, I can just justify why we're asking for 0.9 on that side. Even by reducing it, the office space is very small. If you put the first floor, you can see the office space there. Where the closet is, it's only 7'4". If we reduce it any further, then the room won't even be in use. So we feel that what we're proposing is very modest. And if you see the entrance is not that grand, it's very small as well. And I reduced the garage to the minimum that we're allowed. 10'8" is the minimum. We had a little bit bigger before. That's why we jogged it in. So I feel that what we're proposing, it's a very modest house. We don't have a length variance. We don't have a cover variance. So I feel it's within the parameters. And I feel that this application meets the 4 tests.
So basically, it's the side yard setback, which is item number 2, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. That's very minor. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
If there are no other questions for Mr. Perez at this time, let's hear from the neighbor at 55 Ringley next door, Mr. Criticos. There's also seems to be a letter on file. That's the next application, I guess.
Oh, excuse me, sorry. There's a power failure in my home, and literally as it was my time to speak, it just came back up. So,
wow. So
my name is George Criticos. I'm the neighbor. I'm at 55 Ringley, so I am on the west side of the house. So my only concern for this, and I addressed this with the neighbor already, is that they did the survey for the land survey, and it actually, based on how our house is set up, it shifts by 4 inches over. And if that is truly the case, this affects not only myself, but the neighbors and so on and so forth. So I'm not too sure the survey that was conducted for the land survey was done properly. I questioned it, but I was told, oh, it's technology, it works that way. And it's like, okay, well, I have a neighbor that's going to be encroaching on me. Do I have concerns with the build? No, it's just my concerns with the actual survey that was held. And the only thing I have to ask too is I'm not sure, are there going to be windows on our side with this expansion? I have no clue on my side of the house for privacy.
Just finish, Mr. Perez will respond to your concerns at the end of what you had to say.
Yep.
So just keep going, and he's making notes, I guess, to answer what your concerns are, whether there's windows. We don't get involved with property, just boundary disputes between neighbors. We just live with the variances. So
okay,
I'll let him respond, but the committee's not going to deal with that issue.
No, but it would affect the variance.
Keep going with what your concerns are, sir.
No, but would that not, if the property line is off, would that not affect the variance then? Because right now
I'll let Mr. Perez answer to that.
Okay, so that's all that I had. That was my only concern that I wanted to present. So I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the neighbor?
Just a comment. It looks like if you're on the west side, according to the west side elevation, there are a couple of windows there. Yes. Okay. Anyway, I'll let Mr. Perez.
Okay, Mr. Perez, back in your court. I'm not doing your job. You have to respond. So mention that is there some issue with the survey that that's been brought to your attention?
The survey.
Your response.
Yeah, hi. The survey, we got a brand new survey done, and the marks are there. It's accurate. I can get the surveyor to go out again. Also, if the neighbor likes, he can contest it. But to me, the survey is done. It was done new, and it's with the numbers on it are correct. And as per the window, we're only adding one window on the second floor, which is for a bedroom, and we're putting a fire shutter on that window. That's only just for fire safety and to meet the lighting that we need for the bedroom. We're only adding the one window. The other two are existing.
I'm just looking. This is a new survey. It's done by a registered surveyor, a licensed surveyor.
Correct.
I can't seem to see anything on my copy anyway.
And if you look at all the neighbors, if you look at all the neighbors in the area, the lots are all consistent. They all have like 0.89 or 0.91, and then they have the bigger up where the driveway is. All along the street, they're pretty consistent. So I feel that it's the survey is done correctly. Thank you.
Okay. Now, any further questions for Mr. Perez, or is someone ready for a motion?
Danny Bellissimo is ready for a motion if there are no further questions. Make reference to the waiver that was given in the additional material and for approval for variances with no conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Do I have a seconder for that? Ms. Alderson, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Perez. Thank you, the neighbor as well. Mr. Kritikos. Okay, moving on to item number 29. 71 Rathburn. It's an application for a detached dwelling with an attached garage. There's only one variance. And that is the gross floor space index. And I have a note here that they're only 36 meters over. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to be here. So we have the one variance. We do have a letter of opposition from the neighbor. I can't see what the address is, but it says the demolition was done without approved variance, and I just can't see the rest. There seems to be something that's been cut and pasted in. So maybe someone can help, but I have to say it looks like it's in Graywood. Okay, and the speaker on this application is Mehdi Ajvand, and as well the neighbor from 16 Graywood registered to speak.
Then I can go to see the sound.
Okay, so the applicant is Mehdi Ajvand.
Hi, my name is Nushin from Hyphen Studio. My colleague couldn't make it for the hearing, so I represent the case.
Can you spell your name for the record, please?
It's Noushin, Noushin, and last name is Mozaffari, Mozaffari.
Thank you.
Okay, and we do have the neighbor registered as well to speak on this. And again, I'm trying to see if this letter that I have a copy of looks like it just has some cut and paste from city staff somewhere, so I don't understand if, but we'll hear. Luckily, we have this neighbor present. Okay, so please go ahead, and you have 5 minutes to present your application to the committee. I know there is only one variance for 36 square meters, if that's the case.
Yes.
We'd like to know what the neighbor's concern is. And there is an urban forestry condition. You're aware of that as well and okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
As you see, we only are asking for one variance, and actually this design has already a building permit as is and is under construction. I'm not sure if you have a presentation document that I have provided. I just submitted it last night. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but I have provided the building permit number and the site plan of the actual building permit. The only change that we are making is enclosing the garage, which is located under the second floor projection. And in this designation, the garage also is calculated as a part of the GFA. So just enclosing the garage makes this one variance for the building. The proposed house for this lot is very undersized. It's not a big house. And
okay, so why don't we hear from the neighbor then? You're okay with the urban forestry? Let's hear from the neighbor at 16 Greywood and staff. I'm just looking at my application. Somehow I'm missing the first page of the notice. Is anyone else missing the first page of their notice here? I have the last page of the references for the Arbus report on application 28, and then I have the second page of the notice on RATHBURN. I don't have the first page. Okay, I guess only me. So let's hear from the neighbor as to what the concerns are on this application. Chola Tolia at 16 Greywood.
Sorry, we did sound check Chola, but I don't see them on the line. I've refreshed, and I'm still not.
Okay, anyway, if I'm curious, I would have liked to know what the concern was for 36 square meters to build a new house, and that's the only variance. Okay, so if we don't have the neighbor, we don't have the neighbor. We do have an opposition letter, though, but I can't understand the opposition letter. I don't know if anybody else can.
Sorry, we have a new participant that I don't have registered, Eric Pook.
Hi there. It's Eric Pook. I'm the neighbor at 73 Rathburn. It's the east lot line is what is adjacent to the 71 Rathburn.
Okay, could we get the spelling of your name? Because I'm sure staff's going to need it, especially if you're not registered.
Yeah, sorry. Did
E-R-I-C last. Go ahead.
Did you register to speak?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry, go ahead with your spelling. Thank you.
It's P as in Paul, O-O-K.
And your address, sir?
73 Rathburn.
Thank you.
So I won't speak for the neighbor on Greywood. However, we had been in communication. I think the net of the concern was the from our particular perspective was the in terms of the variance, the excavation that occurred was right to the property line, which has then caused some damage to the fence, etc., which we're in the process of resolving with the owner. They called last night. They're anxious to work out a resolution and whatnot. So I won't speak for the other neighbor, but I know it was a concern based on a privacy. There was the height of the rear patio, and that was all done because of the original permit was submitted without the garage being enclosed, which is the request of the variance, and that's why there is has caused an issue now with both either looking into from a privacy perspective into the backyard, as well as to the rear neighbor who is on Greywood.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the neighbor? 73.
And we do have Chalia back. So if there are no questions.
And that's the neighbor on the other side. Okay, we have Chalia, who was registered at 16 Greywood. So welcome. Let's just see, first of all, if anyone had any questions for the first neighbor. Spoke. Oh, okay, let's hear from the second neighbor. Chala.
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute them, but it doesn't seem to be going. Chala, if you can try phoning in quickly, please. I don't seem to be able to unmute you. Trying to refresh. See if that's better.
When you join WebEx, you have to enable the audio, otherwise it won't let you speak.
Okay, we heard from one neighbor. Yeah, can we, does anyone have the letter that I have before me that just sort of stops with a cut and paste from staff? And not have the rest of the letter? Or am I the only one?
It does continue. It's from the speaker, 16 Greywood.
What I have continue after that is the application number 30. So I may be, something happened here. Okay.
So we do have Chala unmuted. Sorry. We have Chala unmuted.
You now have him?
Yep.
Welcome, Chala.
And can we share the rest of that letter so the chair can see?
Committee of Adjustment, I'm speaking.
And I also don't have the first page of the application 29. I don't know what happened to that. In any event, do we have Chala or not? We have to move on if we don't. This has gone on long enough. I don't know what you can, it's 36 square meters over. Otherwise, we don't have to be here. It's the only variance. Yes or no? Is Talia on the line? Okay, back to the agent then to respond to the other neighbor, and as well to the letter that I haven't seen.
Yeah, so Chala's been unmuted. I don't know what's going on, but they've been unmuted.
There's a second one, Adam.
Yeah.
Hello?
There we go.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, can. Is that Chala?
I'm her husband. We were trying to get unmuted for some reason. It was not.
Okay, can we get your name if you're going to be the one speaking?
My wife will speak. She's here now.
Chola Tolia.
Okay, thank you. Let's see what you have to say.
There is a second page to our letter, and it had both of our names, so I'm not sure why you couldn't see it, and it had our address. Okay. So I'm sorry you couldn't see that. It had a second page which had the majority of the concerns on the letter.
Mm-hmm.
And the concerns really were about the footprint of the building and privacy issues, which we hope the proposal can be modified in some way, or the owner does some mitigation. And things for privacy, the footprint of the building being so far back in the property, not congruent with the other buildings neighboring, which will present a situation for our young family where this is an imposing huge building looking over our property with really zero mitigation of privacy. There's no landscaping to support that. It's not in line with what the properties around have. They have big established mature landscaping, and that doesn't exist in this property. So they built this plan without any mitigation of privacy, and having it so far back, it seemed immediately like a variance from the other properties which had variances. It seems worse than that. And so we're wondering if the the developers can mitigate that. That's really our main concern for privacy. There is a.
Is that all? Please continue. Sorry, I was just going to mention, you know, in terms of where it is on the lot, I don't think we have any variances for side yards, rear yards, length, depth, height. There's only one variance, and I believe that's for being.
I understand. Yeah, from
so,
zoning, I get the privacy, but
yeah,
it's about the character of the neighborhood and the established properties next to it. Having it so
right.
far back is such a significant deviation from other homes along that line, and it doesn't make sense that such a large home would be built, large or small, whatever, depending on you looking at the neighborhood, have really no backyard space. It's not congruent with other neighboring properties.
Anyway, I hope he hasn't missed any variances, because if you do something that's so untoward, as you say, I can't quite see, then you'd figure it would trigger some variances if it's deviates so much from the norm.
Yeah, it seems this way, and it was appropriately done that way in the drawing that I only saw today. Unfortunately, this is like all brand new. I'm just looking at it now, both my husband and myself. So things were done late. I don't know why a foundation was built before anything was completed. That's new to me. I'm not really familiar with how zoning variance bylaws go, but that was disappointing. Nonetheless, it's in our second page of our concern letter. We're hoping that the developers can look at that information, mitigate. It is far back. It seems like it's going to be a major imposition on our privacy. We have a young family with special needs as well, and we're really concerned about the privacy and security where we feel like we're in a fishbowl. It doesn't seem congruent with neighboring properties, although we're very much in favor of developing properties in the neighborhood for the caliber of the neighborhood. This just seems very, very far back, and that was the main concern. And higher up, there's a deck structure. If perhaps the developer can address that right now. There's a deck which seems the deck is on line with the top of our fence line, which means it's directly looking over our backyard and probably the neighboring properties as well.
Okay, we'll go back and get the response to your concerns for privacy. In terms of landscaping, again, you let him, maybe it just doesn't show. I assume maybe they're going to do extensive landscaping after the house is built, because their privacy goes both ways, right?
Yep.
Everyone wants privacy.
Some money on privacy as well already, and landscaping.
So the only other thing I'm concerned as we go back, I'm only seeing one variance, and what you're describing is you figure there'd be a whole bunch of variances if there was this level of intrusion or anyway. Let's hear back from the applicant. Okay, so I only see the one variance, which means he's building a house that more or less complies with the bylaw.
It completely complies with the bylaw, Mr. Chair. As I said, we have a building permit for this design, and I already have provided that. We have more than 11 meters of rear setback, which is all landscaping area, which will be landscaped after the construction is finished. And we don't have a deck, we have a patio on ground, and everything in this design, building length, setbacks, height, wall height, everything is as of right, and we are not asking for any variance. The intention of my clients was to do a modest home. For this big lot, we are proposing a 3-bedroom house for the client to live in there and not to resell. And as I said, the only reason for this variance is enclosing the garage area, which is unfortunately calculated as part of the GFA in this designation. If it was like any other zoning designation that the garage is not considered as a livable area, we wouldn't be here because the actual livable area of the building complies with the bylaw and meets the bylaw's limitation.
Okay, so in terms of your placement of the house, where you're placing it on the lot, that is purely as of right. The neighbor was mentioning that where you're choosing to place the house is unusual compared to the rest of the street.
No, it's as of right. The front setback is the average of the adjacent neighbors. The rear setback is more than required. The side setbacks comply with the bylaw. If you look at the site plan, the length of the building is almost aligned with the east neighbor. The west neighbor is shorter, has a shorter building, but if they decide to develop their property, they can have the same building length of 17 meters, which is as of right. As I said, the building is under construction because it's as of right, and my clients during the construction, they decided to just enclose the garage area, which was like a covered parking pad, and for that only reason we are here to get this variance for GFA.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for any of the speakers, or is someone ready for a motion? We do have urban forestry condition number 1. Mr. Kumar?
I'm ready to chime in. I believe the one variance being sought is minor. I believe otherwise is consistent with the zoning and official plan and meets the 4 tests. I would therefore like to move approval subject to forestry condition 1.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Alderson. All in favor?
A race to the finish.
Yeah, unanimous approval. Thank you. Thank you to the agent for that, explaining that would appear to be kind of complicated. Okay, next application is item number 30. This is a matter we looked at before. The applicant chose to proceed, notwithstanding planning's request for deferral. We did have a TRCA deferral request for that. And there is an ravines and natural feature protection condition. We have a revised proposal with a greater setback. That the TRC wants to defer in order to get a revised proposal with a greater setback to the stable top of bank. So, Mr. Perez, you're the only speaker, so you objected to the deferral. So what's happening with TRCA?
TRCA has sent another letter, as if you can see, it's on your, should be on your package, that they're okay with it now after we made the changes. We've been dealing with TRCA since November, and they finally got back to us once we applied for committee of adjustment. Prior to that, we were in contact with planning. Planning had asked us if we can reduce the house from 18.65 meters to 18 meters, and we said we're okay with it, so we reduced the house. And he was okay with going forward with it. Then TRCA sent a letter, and then they sent a new letter saying that they're okay with it now. And I spoke with planning, and they're also okay with us to go forward. And the other thing that TRCA asked for was the deck at the back was originally 3.05 meters, and we made it only 0.91 meters just to be farther away from the stable top of the bank.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the reason we made the deck as well smaller. But none of the variances changed because the depth and the length is taken to the back of the shed, which is existing. The garage and shed are remaining. So that's where the variances are taken from.
Okay, so it did in this one, they weighed in here. We have like the standard memo from TRCA. It said this application condition 1. So condition 1, is that a condition? Then we have the verbiage from their minutes, or from Nicole. It looks like a page 2 of something. I don't see where page 1 is. Where it says from Nicole Melrose that we recommend approval, or no, it says we recommend deferral. But
Eddie, we don't have anything new from.
Now satisfy the revised proposal. No, but it does say. Look at the.
No, I send it to Nicole last week.
At the top, Barb, at the top of the page, it says, since receiving the circulation, TRC staff work with the applicant are now satisfied with the revised proposal, which provides a greater setback to tabletop of bank. But then it goes on at the bottom to say it should be deferred until the requested variance has been revised to address the updated proposal. I don't understand that. Eddie, please explain.
Well, I sent the revised drawings to Nicola also on the 29th of March. She was just questioning if another variance would click in. I sent an email to Nahed from the city, and he said that it shouldn't because we're more than 10 meters away. And I think the variances will remain as is. There won't be any additional variances.
Isn't there a question as to where is the stable top of bank? Isn't that TRCA's concern?
The stable top of the bank, at the one corner, we're 16 meters away, and the closest corner of the deck, we're 10.86. Their policy is to be 10 meters away, and we're 10 meters away from the stable top of the bank.
But we don't have this letter that you say that you have from them. We don't have it.
Well, I don't have that. I have this letter that she said we can move forward.
The one on the screen, staff, Barb, the first paragraph seems at least contradictory, unless I'm missing something with the conclusion that said it should be deferred.
They state twice, once at the top and then in the conclusion, that they're asking for a deferral. So I think there's been discussion with TRCA to modify the deck, and they're okay with that, but I don't know that they saw these plans.
Yeah, they saw the plans. I sent in the last plans.
I know, but they don't. They have not given us updated comments.
Well, I feel comfortable with it. There won't be any other variances. So if I have to come before the committee again, we'll come before the committee again. But I feel like they've had this file since November, and it took till March for them to look at it. TRCA. That's been a 5-month process. My clients would like to move forward as well.
They even talk about a revised site plan received by TRCA. They say that you've replaced the rear deck.
I changed the rear deck. It's now 0.91 meters. It's
So
very
it's
small.
a 3-foot landing. Is that what they're talking about? And it's dated March.
That's correct. It goes along the back of the house. Yeah. And I also sent those drawings to Nicole Melrose on March 29th as well.
Yeah, the committee has the revised plans. There's there's plans, and then it says revised plans.
And TRCA has the same plans as well.
The conclusion seems at odd with what they've said above. That's all I'm saying. Whether we should defer for one meeting to get a clarification, if you could get Mr. Perez on the next meeting, it just seems very, I think they just forgot to take out that conclusion, or, you know. Because Mr. Perez, you know, he's a honorable guy who's been before this committee many times for many years. So I don't think he's trying to mislead us. Anyway, I'm in the committee's hands. Either we just defer or we go ahead, but let's do something.
Danny Belisma has a question for staff then. Barb, if we approve this still goes through a review, and if TRCA catches it, it will come back as Mr. Perez says. Is that correct?
Sorry, Danny, can you repeat that?
Yes, I'm just asking you to clarify what Mr. Perez is saying is that he's willing to take a chance, and if we do approve this today, the application will go through again to TRCA to comment on whether there are other extra variances. I just want to clarify that what Mr. Perez says is accurate.
No, TRCA doesn't get to comment on any new variances when they apply for a building permit.
Okay, thank you.
Will identify any additional variances if required.
Okay, is anyone prepared to make a motion?
I don't know. I have a note somewhere saying that TRCA is not clear as to where the top of bank is, and if it changes, it will affect it could affect some of the variances, and that's my concern. I guess we're in committee right now, so we can't ask the applicant any questions. Perhaps I can ask staff. It says revised plans, and there's a site plan there, and it's not dated. It appears to be the same site plan that the TRCA has stamped. The next page after this one, yeah.
So I think that's where the applicant was saying they've reduced the platform.
Yeah,
which is what TRCA requested.
Yeah, it appears to be the same plan that TRCA has stamped. So I guess, you know
We
what?
also reduced the length, sorry. We also reduced the length of the building. We reduced the length of the building and the platform.
Okay, so we're not supposed to be asking the applicant any more questions, I guess, but what is?
No, you can, because the applicant's saying they reduced the length, but our variances have not changed in terms of length or
Yeah,
depth.
that's what my point is. If the
Yeah,
length is changed.
I explained that as the length doesn't change any variance because they're taking the length and the depth to the back of the shed. That's where that big number comes from, the 21 meter, 0.3,
Okay.
and the other one, they're both coming from the back of the shed.
Okay, so
but you can put it in writing that the house can't be any longer than 18 meters. Because we originally had it at 18.65. We reduced it to 18 meters. So, but the variances won't change because they're taken to the back of the shed because it's attached to the house.
Mr. President, if we approve this in compliance with the site plan that TRCA has stamped, would that meet your requirements?
I'm perfectly okay with that.
Okay.
But where do you see a site
can you
plan
show that
stamped
plan?
by? I don't have
It's
a
in the
stamp.
TRCA letter. The TRCA letter, which is the last item on our
It has all the drawings on it.
There's a stamp that says received by TRCA. It doesn't say approved.
Well,
The letter says, okay.
We still have to
The
go through the
letter
channels with them.
refers to that. Yeah.
We still have to get permits from TRCA. This just the preliminaries, but we still have to get a permit from them.
I would feel more comfortable using the plans submitted to Committee of Adjustment.
If we're done with this, I'm
both
ready
the same.
to make a recommendation.
The plans from the city and the plans for TRCA are exactly the same. You can submit either one. It doesn't matter to me. They're both the same.
Is someone making a motion? We spent way too much time on this, so let's move on, please.
I'm ready to move for approval. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
So make a motion, please, someone.
Permit from TRCA, or they won't be able to do anything. So I'm ready to move for approval, subject to forestry permit or ravine permit.
Urban forestry has
Variances
also has
requested
condition
or
number
minor.
1.
Yes,
So,
variances requested or minor, so I'm ready to move for approval.
okay.
It's
subject
ravine
to what
number 1.
conditions? Just subject to urban forestry number 1.
Ravine.
Yes. Ravine, which number 1 is for a private tree permit. If it was forestry, it would be number 2.
Okay, seconder for that motion. Mr. Komorik, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Perez, for helping us walk through that.
No problem. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, next application is item number 31, A, B, C, D, and E. 38 Rockcliffe Boulevard. It's consent to sever the property into two undersized lots. A total of 3 residential lots will be created in conjunction with the companion application. We have presentation. So we have the 38 Rockcliffe, and apparently then we have 40A, all these companion applications attached to it. 40A parts 1, parts 2 and 3. So it's a consent to sever for the purpose of a law addition. We have this matter was deferred from February 23rd, 2022. So we have the materials from the previous hearing, including the planning report. Is advised that their report for information dated February 11th still stands, and we'll perhaps get up the presentation material. And the speaker on this application is Franco Romano.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Romano, please walk us through this.
Yes, sir. So this is an application that involves two consent applications. It involves a land addition. So there is a land addition from 40A, which is a southerly lot, and 38, which is a northerly lot. So 40A, which is a southerly lot, has an existing semi-detached dwelling on it. And it's the north half of a semi-detached building. So there's nothing new that's being done to that lot. That existing building and the variances associated with it all are existing conditions. The new semi-detached dwelling will form the northerly lot and the middle lot. So what you see in the upper right-hand corner of slide 1 is the subject lands includes 38A from the left, or sorry, from the right. That's the north. 38B, which is the 2 parts to be combined lot addition, and then 40A, which is the north half of the existing semi. So these, much of this application was in front of the Committee of Adjustment in 2020. What was missing from 2020 was a lot addition from 40A. So essentially the semi-detached on 38B and 38A, and that severance was authorized in 2020. And then when the owner went to satisfy the conditions of consent, it was found that part of the lot addition from 40A didn't exist. Hence, we had to come back with the applications that are before you today. The reason why it was deferred in February was because of some of the transfer of the zoning notice to the public hearing notice. There was no other reason for the deferral. What you also see on the right-hand side of slide 1 is that there's topography in this area. So there's a rise in topography from the front to the back of about 2.5 meters. So what gets counted on the subject site for floor space index today under bylaw 569/2013 includes the basement. And that isn't the case for the former York bylaw for many other properties on the street, including the semis and the detached that you see in those photographs. So when we're actually comparing apples to apples, the floor space index that's being proposed here over 2 floors is 0.88, whereas 0.8 is required. The 1.28 that is listed, or the 1.09 for the existing semi, includes the basement. So along Rockcliffe Boulevard itself, you're going to see detached, semi-detached, multiplex, including an apartment building, a large apartment building, number 31. Number 31 is an apartment building which is on the on the right-hand side. It's a very long building. That is built out at least 1.72 times floor space index. So in terms of the FSI that's being proposed, it's well in keeping with what's found on the street and in the neighborhood. I should say for the 3 lots, there is no lot frontage, no lot area variance required. If we go to the second slide, please. What you're going to see is that topography influences also some of the variances associated with the rear platform. If you look at the lower right, the rear elevation, that ground floor deck, which is 76 to 96 centimeters above finished grade at the back, is considered a second story platform from the zoning notice for, and that's also over top of a basement cantina that is included in building length, building depth, and rear yard setback. So there's a number of grade related influences with respect to the variances. In terms of the building setbacks themselves, building length, you're going to see that this neighborhood and on this street, it consists of properties that have similar building setbacks, similar lengths and depths. And if we go back to slide number 1, maybe we don't have to go back there, but I was going to point out that number 28 Rockcliffe, which is shown as a little former bungalow square on the property map, is actually the dwelling in the middle right-hand side photograph with a garage and 2 levels of living above. So that detached house has replaced the little square that was on the property map, the city property map that has not yet been updated. And it also has a floor space index, side yard setbacks, building length, rear yard setback, and all of those platform related items that is being proposed for the subject lands. So subject to any questions, sir, I submit that what's being proposed here follows what was previously authorized, but also respects and reinforces what's found on the street and in the neighborhood with no impact.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Romano? Mark?
I'm trying to understand why 40A is part of this application. Is the owner owns both adjoining lots? Is that the situation?
Well, I'd have to pull up the let me see. It is Mary Muscat who owns both lots. 40A is part of it because they're part of 40A is being conveyed for a lot addition to part of 38B, which is also, sorry, so let me get the address correct here. 38. So part of 40A is being severed.
Okay,
I got it to part of 38A.
Okay, got it.
There's your lot addition to create what I'm showing on that slide there in the upper right as 38B.
Okay.
Yeah, I got maybe a silly question. Okay, so we have the variances. We no longer have, because I'm looking, as I say at the outset, Mr. Romano, planning advised in a memo that their planning report from February 11, 2022 is still applicable. They're reports from information only, but they go on, if you pull that up, which I just did from the previous hearing, it says, although it's for receipt for information, they say for 40, no problem with it continuing to exist. But when it says the one for information about 38, it goes through a whole whack of variances without been, and they point out that they still have concerns with floor space index, building length, building depth, and rear yard setback. Proposed semi-detached house will extend deeper into the lots, et cetera, and no longer have concerns with main pedestrian heights. So what am I confused about here? These were old variances, and on the report dated February 11th, and we still have an application before us with 9 variances.
These are I think part of the confusion is that these variances, staff had concerns with them back in 2020. Committee of Adjustment approved them. So what they're saying in this report is that they continue to have concerns with floor space index, building length, building depth, and rear yard setback. And what I've tried to explain is that those concerns should be allayed because what we have in terms of building depth and building length is counting part of that basement.
Gotcha.
And that is also the floor space index calculation that also includes the entirety of the basement as a
it was approved in
first
2020.
floor. But when we look at the height, mass, and scale, you're permitted 11 meters and 3 stories in this neighborhood, and the proposal is at just 9.12 meters. The building width on a complying lot is in keeping with what we see next door, up and down the street. This is an eclectic street and neighborhood. It's an RM zoning. There's all kinds of different building types in this area.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Romano, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Or 6 motions, or whatever is required.
One motion is enough.
Okay.
Sorry, Danny Berdisson would like to weigh in on a motion. I find this proposal basically subject to the problem of established grades, and so these numbers are skewed because of that, and established grade has thrown them all up in the air. So I find the variances and the proposal meets the 4 tests, and I'd like to move for approval of the consent and of the variances before us today.
It's subject to engineering construction services.
Yes, standard.
I think we have urban forestry condition 3.
Yes, I was going to add that just now. Urban forestry 3.
Okay, a second for Mr. Bellissimo's motion.
Happy to second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Romano.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and evening.
Will do. Next application is item number 32, 68 24th Street, an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. This matter was deferred both from the January 30th, 2022 hearing, as well from November 2019 pre-COVID application. Urban Forestry looking for condition number 1. We have a detached dwelling with an attached garage, which looks like it now has 1 variance. I had noted 2. 2. Okay. We have a cover letter and we have previous materials from the previous hearing and supporting material and all that material from the previous hearing. The speaker for this application is David Stickney, as well as we have the neighbor from 67 24th Street on the line. Ready to speak as well. Mr. Stickney, welcome. You can please bring us up to date on the history of this matter.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. David Stickney, 149 Lowther Avenue, Toronto. This is a previously deferred item. The changes that have been made to the proposal are essentially eliminating a living room that was above the garage, which in effect dropped the floor space index dramatically and lowered the height. There was previously height of walls on this side of the building. So at this point, there are 2 variances, and the modifications are for 0.63 for the floor space index and for the side yard setbacks of 0.61 and 0.91, which are in fact maintenance of and slightly increasing setbacks that exist in this block. I would argue that, from previous decisions immediately in the neighborhood, 14 Elder, which but for 1 lot touches the back of this property, was approved recently at 0.71 times coverage. 21 Elder, which is a few doors west of that and on the opposite side, 0.66. 40 Elder was approved very recently at 0.96. So I think that from the standpoint of FSI, we're well within the range of what is being built in the neighborhood, which is single family, 4-bedroom houses. Perfect neighborhood to raise a family. One comment I would make is if the committee sees fit to approve We did make a slight modification to the front elevation based upon discussions with the planning department, which was essentially modifying the material of the gable from the material of the second, like the space over the garage, so that it appears to be an attic story, thereby making a more horizontal look to the building. And that condition would be submitted to the committee on a drawing A 6.2. Other than that, I'm open for questions from the committee.
Okay, so you're basically saying, as you know, being a honorable planner, that you agreed with community planning that you would make that a conditional of approval because they haven't asked for it. I'm aware of.
That's the condition that we agreed with
Okay.
planning to make. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Very, because we don't have, at least I don't have, it also seemed to be something happened to I'm missing suddenly the second page of your notice, which I know I had when I reviewed it yesterday. But we don't have that anything from community planning asking for that, but Mr. Stickney has, honorably mentioned that community planning was looking for that. So, okay, we do have a neighbor present, so perhaps if you sort of finished up, you'll certainly have a chance to respond, Mr. Stickney, to the concerns of the neighbor, if any. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Stickney before we do that? Okay, if not, let's hear from Joe Gordon at 67 next door. Welcome, Mr. Gordon. We're across the street, sorry. Mr. Gordon, you're the neighbor across the street. The floor is yours, sir. Paul?
Hi, Mr. Gordon, I'm not sure if you're unmuting yourself or we're not able to hear you. Maybe try reconnecting on a different device.
And Mr. Chair, the agent was supposed to address the first variance. The maximum permitted floor space index should be 0.35, not 0.33.
Mr. Stickney?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's essentially just a typo. I apologize for that. The bylaw for the area allows for 0.35. What we are requesting is 0.63, which is regardless of what the bylaw allows as a typo. The figures that we're asking for remain the same because the committee is granting an FSI as a percentage of the lot area. So the fact that there's a typo on what the bylaw allows doesn't affect the decision of the committee.
So it said that the permissible was 0.33 instead of 0.35. You should have said 3.5 as permitted as of right.
Correct.
I don't have it in front of me. Sorry.
That's the correct summary. Yes.
So I guess you couldn't argue that there's a notification if it said that permitted is 0.5, and if I think because it's less, it seems like I don't think no one's misled, but wouldn't have been here. Talking about someone being here, where's Mr. Gordon? He is, I guess, directly across the street. Was Mr. Gordon not on the line, Paul?
He is on the line. I'm sure. I think it's an issue with the connection. Let me see if. Hi, Mr. Gordon. Hi, Joe. He is on the line. Joe, if you can hear me, if you can just disconnect, and I guess you can call in, or if that doesn't work, you can call on the phone number in my signature, and I'll put the mic to the computer, and we'll have your voice or your concerns heard that way. But this method of connection isn't really working, so maybe let's try another one, and we can go from there.
Are these people sound checked at the break? That they know how to log on and speak?
Yeah, they were all
Take
sound
themselves
checked.
off of mute?
Yep, they were all sound checked at the time, and their connection was working at the time, or else we would have tried to fix it then.
Anyway, I'm prepared to proceed. Did we hear back from Mr. Stickney in the meantime? What happened back in 2019? They just put it on the shelf. There wasn't anything. This was an application from back in 2019.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr.
Nothing to say. I'm just interested, party. I have nothing to add to this conversation.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Joe.
And so I wasn't too worried about there's something wrong with my microphone, I guess.
Okay.
But you can just tell the committee that I have nothing to add to the process.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. I'll let them know. Thank you.
Thanks for following up. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
now.
Okay, we heard that. We got that on the record. Okay, so no need to go back for rebuttal to Mr. Stickney. Any questions for Mr. Stickney, or is someone ready for a motion?
Danny Bellissimo was ready to make a motion if there are no further questions. I'd like to move for approval of the variance to find they're minor in nature, subject to forestry. Based on the presentation submitted, I found this proposal is in keeping with the character of the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded for that, Mr. Komaric.
So do we want to add elevation? I just have elevation A6. I'm not sure if there was more detail to that or not.
I don't think elevations in this drawing really makes a difference.
We'll just, you know what? Yeah, so forestry condition 1, I'm good. Second.
Mr. Stickney mentioned that he agreed with community planning to make a certain condition, or was that the application before that?
No, that was this one, but I'm assuming he's going to do it anyway, so.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Okay, moving on to item number 33, 39 Ringley Avenue, detached dwelling from attached garage with 5 variances. We have urban forestry looking for condition number 2. We have a letter of opposition from 16 Aldgate. And the speaker for the speakers, we have Ali Mahi is the agent for the applicant. That's the only speaker we have.
Good afternoon. Yeah, it's the agent.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you for your time. Good afternoon, Chairman.
Okay, we have the 5 variances. We don't have anyone here. This matter was deferred from February 23rd, 2022?
Yes, 22.
Okay, what was the purpose for the deferral? And
we did some revision, and the committee was late sending letters to the neighbors. That's why we were.
Okay, so there was notification. We do have a letter of opposition, but that person is not here. Mr. Ashley from 16 Aldgate. Members have seen that letter. Let's just see if community members have any questions for you based on this new bill with 5 variances and an urban forestry condition.
Quick question, is transportation weighing in this? I'm looking at old materials. I can't figure that out.
That's an old material, yes. That's an old material. We're only asking
So
for
it's
one garage.
no longer relevant?
Yes, no
Thank you.
longer relevant.
Okay, so if no other questions, if someone is ready to make a motion.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, before we move on to a motion, just a point of clarification. I was advised by one of the neighbors, he actually spoke on the other application with respect to Ringley, that there's a letter of support on file signed by his father that he would like to retract because he said that his father wasn't completely sure of what he was signing.
That's on what, the current application we're about to vote on?
Yes.
39 Ringley, do anyone see a letter of support on?
There is a letter of support, yes, from the neighbors.
Oh, there's a petition, I guess he's on the petition. His name is, what did you say his address was, this gentleman? Paul?
Yep, sorry, his address was, let me just find it here.
That was in the materials from the previous hearing, not
I
today's
think
hearing.
44 Ringley.
44. Yes, I see it here. Michael Criticos. No?
Yep, that's correct. I believe his son George spoke on a previous item.
All right, he was a speaker on one of the other application on Ringley, correct?
Correct.
He's still on call if you want to clarify with him.
Anyway, he just doesn't want to be a signatory of the letter that came in at the hearing last time that's before us in our materials. Being the letter, I think when it came before us this past time, correct? There's a handwritten notation on one of the, and they've all kind of signed their names. Yes, 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 yes. And so the gentleman from United, from the 44 would like to have his name stricken from that in the minutes, that he does not agree that there was some miscommunication that he was led to agree to, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Paul?
Correct, yep.
Okay, you know, for the record?
Yep.
All's good?
Yep.
Okay. Now that we have that clarified, we were in the middle, someone was about to make a motion, or? Had someone already made a motion or started to make a motion? When Paul advised us that one of the neighbors decided he wanted to let us know that he doesn't consent to a petition he signed that's in our materials from the other hearing. So having resolved that.
Danny
I'm ready
Benesco, I'd
for
like to, yeah, I can weigh in with a motion on this. I'm looking at the very nice axonometric drawing of this proposal and move for approval of the variances. I find that they're minor in nature, subject to condition of forestry number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. The seconder for that. Ms. Alderson, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you. You have your approval. Thank you, Mr. Ramahi.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome. Have a wonderful evening. Item 34 has been deferred, so we move on to item number 35, 6 First Street. It's an application for a new detached dwelling with detached garage with 3 variances. We have a cover letter. The material from the previous hearing as this matter was deferred from the January 30th, 2022 hearing. Urban Forestry is looking for condition number 3. And in the additional materials, we have a revised notice. Perhaps we can get that up on the screen, staff. Variance 3 having been revised, actually made a bit higher, I believe, and revised plans and waiver. The speaker on this application is David Eagleman. David, welcome.
Good afternoon, Sir Chair and fellow committee members. I will note this application was actually deferred from the February 10th, 2022 hearing date to deal with planning staff concerns. And we have dealt with planning staff. We have consulted with them extensively, and we have made rather significant revisions to the proposal to their satisfaction. I will note the reason there are quite a few plans and variances on the file is because we have gone back and forth with planning staff and tried different things to satisfy them and submitted those to the committee. So that is the reason for the number of plans and variances that you have on file. And also the latest plans and variances that you have in front of you, we did submit those because I see on the public notice that you have on the screen right now, the variance number 3 was revised to 8.78. That was actually our original variance that we submitted to the committee that planning staff were satisfied with. However, there was an error on the public notice that was issued in that variance, which showed 8.73 instead of 8.78. So we subsequently submitted a revised set of plans and a revised waiver to reflect the variances noted on the public notice so that we didn't have an issue with inadequate notice and would then be deferred.
So members, please do not refer to this revision page. The notice that went out to the public is what the revised plans now match.
And through you, Mr. Chair, if you would like a presentation, I can provide one. However, we did work extensively with planning staff. We have significantly revised the proposal. The variances are very minor, and I'm of the opinion that this proposal is in keeping with the neighborhood and represents good planning and meets the 4 tests.
It's down to these 3 variances, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, your microphone is a little muffled. Can you just repeat that?
I said so you're down to the 3 variances.
Yes, yes. Through you, Mr. Chair, we're down to 3.
Okay, so let's see if members have any questions here. If someone's ready for a motion.
I actually do have a question of clarification. I'm looking at this house on Google Maps right now. First of all, it's a semi, is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, are you referring to the subject property?
Yes, 8 First Street looks like a semi with 8 and First look like they're joined. 8 and 6 look like they're joined.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the house is currently, yes, it is a semi.
Okay. And I also wanted to talk about front yard setback because it really, I have never seen a street where the front yard setbacks are so at odds with one another. So can you just talk a little bit about the front yard setback and what particular house are you going to be matching up with? Because right now it's a hodgepodge.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, just to correct my first answer, I believe it is a single detached dwelling. I do note there are 2 front entrances. However, to my understanding, it is a single detached dwelling because the 8 First Street is actually the adjacent house, not on the subject property. It's the adjacent house that has a fairly contemporary design to the north. And through you, Mr. Chair, in regards to the question about the front yard setbacks, the reason the proposal or the subject property has such a large front yard setback requirement is entirely because of the property at 4 First Street. Every other property on the street is basically in line with one another, and the proposed dwelling and the existing dwelling on the subject property would be in line with most of the dwellings on the street, with the exception of 4 First Street, which is basically the only dwelling that is out of line with every other property on the street. And if you look at an aerial image on Google, that is what is clearly shown. So that is the reason for the very large front yard setback requirement, because it is based on an average of the 2 adjacent houses.
Okay, so that answers my question. So it looks like 6 First Street has 2 entrances with 2 number 6s. It's odd, but that's the way it is. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions, or some ready for a motion?
Anybody listening was ready for a motion, but I just had to clarify. I couldn't hear what Barb was saying about number 3. Could you repeat that? The chair, I couldn't hear it for some reason. I had technical difficulties. Is it 8.73 or 8.78 as per the revision?
8.73. So
thank you. Okay, so as the notice, the original notice we have received. Thank you. In that case, I'd like to move for approval. The variances, I find that they're minor in nature, subject to forestry condition number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. We have a seconder for that. Ms. Alderson, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I see you're, don't go anywhere. You're not the next application, but the last one after that. You're off on our last application. Okay, our next application is item number 36, 15 Belfry Avenue. It's an application to maintain the existing above ground swimming pool in the rear yard. There are 2 variances: the distance from the side yard and the rear lot lines. We have a cover letter, we have support and opposition, and we have the materials from the previous hearing, as this was deferred from the February 23rd, 2022 hearing. And the applicant or the owner is Enrico Scirocco, and we have the neighbor from 11 Belfry on the line, Gail Madison. Welcome, Mr. Scirocco.
Good afternoon. My name is Enrico Scirocco, and I, along with my wife, are the owners of 15 Belfry. And I'm respectfully asking the committee to allow for flexibility and to approve 2 minor variances to the location of our pool so that our pool can remain in its existing location. The variances requested are minor because this request is about a small backyard pool for our children to enjoy over the summer months. It has no negative impact on our neighborhood. Secondly, the variances are minor as the pool sits 1.75 meters from the rear lot line, which is only 1.25 meters less than the required distance, and the pool sits 1.15 meters from the side lot line, which is only 5 centimeters less than the required distance. Thirdly, the variances are minor because the rear property line where the pool sits only abuts a walkway and a solid garage wall. The pool is also over 8 feet away from the garage structure and further separated by a 6-foot-high wooden fence, therefore allowing for separation between the properties. The requested minor variances are desirable for the appropriate use of the land, as the location of the pool is to the far back end of the backyard and furthest away from the sidewalk, the road, and any neighbor's front lawn. The 3 letters of support that we have from our surrounding neighbors all highlight that the pool is in the most private and most appropriate location for both ourselves and for the neighborhood. In addition, we are requesting for the pool to remain in its current location because we are unable to move it the required 3 meters from the rear lot line, as it would block the existing stone walkway and it would sit half on our patio and half on the grass area. As we cannot block our walkway and have the pool on top of our dining area, this is not a viable option. I would like my kids to have a backyard pool. Therefore, if the variance is not granted, I would need to purchase an entirely new rectangular shaped pool, which would then sit 3 meters off the property line without interfering with our existing walkway and patio. It would also sit closer to the front of the house and be more visible from the sidewalk and the street. I would also have to potentially purchase more powerful equipment to support a larger rectangular shaped pool. This would be a huge expense because of a minor variance. While this scenario would comply with all bylaws, it would not be ideal for anyone, as it would not offer the most privacy for ourselves nor for the neighborhood residents. The general intent and purpose of the zoning code and bylaws are maintained, as their intent and purpose is not to prevent residents from having a backyard pool. The committee recently approved the same minor variance request for a pool on another corner lot in our neighborhood. I am respectfully requesting the same consideration and flexibility, given that corner lots can present challenges for zoning requirements. We have our pool pump at 90 centimeters from the rear lot line rather than the 30 centimeters required. We use an anti-vibration pad under our pump, and we do not have any additional equipment such as a water heater that could generate any additional perceived noise. We only use our pool during the daytime hours appropriately and quietly with our children. All of these efforts maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning code and bylaws in relation to separation and noise. The general intent and purpose of the official city plan are maintained, since our request is only about a small pool, and a small pool does not present a negative impact on the character of our neighborhood. Since we live in a neighborhood full of children and active seniors, pools are quite common. As indicated in the city's official plan, a successful city and community means making choices that improve quality of life. Our pool provides us with opportunities for physical exercise, quality family time, and good mental health. In closing, I respectfully ask the committee to approve this request to leave our pool in its current location. We have the unwavering support of 3 of our neighbors, including our next door neighbor to the south, with whom we share a fence that joins both backyards. As well, Councillor Mark Grimes has reviewed our application, and he also sees the variance requested as minor and sees no reason to refuse our request. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for the homeowner applicant, Mr. Scirocco?
Danny Belisma has a quick question. Could you explain, did I hear you say that if you had a rectangular pool, 'cause this is a round pool, 15 feet diameter that you would conform?
We would have to get a pool that would be 12 feet wide by 18 feet long. So
Right.
the distance that we would move the pool would be 3 meters off of that rear property line, and still give us enough space where the walkway is to still get by.
So it would be longer in terms of the rectangle, and it would meet the requirements from what you're saying. Okay. Basically, it's the roundness of it that's the issue, it seems to me, correct?
Yes, it's the 15 feet diameter.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion if there are no further questions.
We have a neighbor, Denny. We have a neighbor. Any other questions firstly for the applicant? We do have a neighbor, and I'd like to address, I don't see a letter. I'm looking to see where the pool is, and I guess what we have to hear from the neighbor is not about the pool itself and all the Comic-Con noise and disruption or splashing, but how the variance, in other words, the difference between what they would have to do to comply with the distance from the side and rear lot lines, and how that would improve the situation, if any. It's not the issue of, it's the issue of placement, and that they're just a little too close to those side lot lines. And also, this is, you know, it's a pool. I guess we're talking about the fence or the pool. There was the fence previously. The fence, I believe now under this application, it's actually maintain the existing pool. So again, the pool is a temporary structure. It's an above ground pool. So that's just another factor that it's really not something that's permanent, going to be there for the next 100 years, like a lot of the other stuff we approve here. Okay, so let's hear from the neighbor, Gail Madison, as to what the issue is with these two variances. Thank you. Is Ms. Madison there?
Yeah, Gail was unmuted and sound checked earlier, but I'm assuming there's a difficulty connecting now. I'm going to try and phone her from my computer, so just bear with me 1 second. I'll try and get her on the line.
While we're waiting, if I can ask a point of clarification, what the previous, Mr. Chair, at the previous application, there was a request for a fence as well. Is a fence no longer required?
You are required to put up a fence for a pool, but it's a municipal code issue, not a zoning issue.
Right. So do they still have to add a fence to this? It's okay.
Probably.
Because it's not a variance, right? The purpose of the last application was to install a pool fence enclosure. I guess maybe that's why they had the deferral, to recouch and repurpose the application. I remember something about that.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we do have Gail on the line.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of
So again, I don't know if you heard me when before I introduced you. If you could hear, I said, I'd like to know not your opposition to the pool itself, but to the two variances. That's what we're here for, right?
Yes, yes. All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Gail Madison, and I live at 11 Belfry Avenue, the property immediately beside 15 Belfry Avenue, and the most impacted by the request for variance. I am also representing the owners of 9 and 12 Belfry, who have work commitments and cannot attend today.
Do you have something in writing from them?
Hello?
Sorry, just to,
Hello?
you have, sorry, Ms. Madison. Do you have anything in writing saying you're acting on behalf of two other neighbors?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so is that you submitted?
That letter is dated February the 8th, and it's signed by the neighbors, Jamie Zabo, Christina, and Sana Keller, and Marcus Keller, February the 8th, and it was the objection, and on there it says that I would be speaking on their behalf.
Okay, I don't see that letter, but perhaps staff can get it up. Okay, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. Please let us know what your concerns are. Yeah, please let us know what your concerns are.
Okay. Okay. It's very difficult, just to let you know, it's very difficult for me to hear you. It's coming in quite faintly, so I apologize if I'm delaying to answer any questions. I'll carry on. My husband and I are young retirees who enjoy living in this neighborhood. This is our only home, and we're home all summer. We've owned several homes with pools. We have nothing against homeowners with pools and are not trying to deny anyone the pleasure of owning a pool. I think that the bylaw in particular recognizes that corner lots that abut key lots cannot be treated the same as other lots because their rear yard is very close to another home. I'm not sure that this is a precedent we want to establish by minimizing the importance of a setback allowance. The property is not set up the same as a regular lot. Homes are much closer to property lines, and I think we need to take that into consideration. Unfortunately, corner lots do have some disadvantages and take more planning to set up a backyard. The city's official plan states that neighborhoods will respect and reinforce existing characteristics, and Section G, prevailing patterns of rear and side yard setbacks and landscaped open spaces have not been met. Along the lot line, there is a garage followed by a bathroom and a bedroom. The reason I mention the bathroom window in the bedroom is that the sound from the pool knows no barriers, and the sound doesn't stop at the property line. This is especially true at night when the sound is accentuated. Perhaps this is why the bylaw was established with a minimum of 3 meters for these types of lots to maintain separation. The size of the pool may be small, but the close proximity to the property line and the matter of a constant running pool filter does create noise regardless of the size of the pool. The pool filter runs 24 hours a day. It is a never-ending, persistent noise. Even air conditioners cycle on and off during the summer. The pool may be open for swimming in July and August, but the pool is not closed until closer to the end of September, and the pump is running the whole time. Many of the notes in favor of this pool location refer to this being the most private for the neighbor, but nothing is mentioned about the impact to 11 Belfry. Why does the pool and the pump need to be the farthest away from the owner's home and as close to the property line as possible? There's no inconvenience to the neighbor, but the inconvenience is experienced by us. All I'm asking for is to be able to enjoy our home as well and get a good night's sleep. A pad was placed under the filter, but we expressed that it didn't block the sound very much. I will mention again that we're not against homeowners with pools. If the committee would like to the pool to remain in its current condition, I would respectfully ask that the committee consider the following. Either rotate the pool 180 degrees so the pump is approximately an equal distance from the 3 homes, 15 Belfry, 11 Belfry, and 72 Coney. This would maintain the privacy the owner wants and reduces the expense of purchasing a new rectangular pool. Or purchase a thicker anti-vibration pad and install a sound-reducing cover. We all agree that personal enjoyment of one's property is important, but the reason for the variance should not be exclusively for the personal enjoyment of the owner, that immediate owner concerns should be neighbors' concerns should be considered and the impact on the neighborhood as a whole taken into account. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present my views today.
Thank you, Ms. Madison. I guess the concern is because it's a corner lot, there isn't the specific, rear yard or corner, because, often we say that when you have something tucked in the corner, like a rear shed, rather than having a small area to collect dirt, you're better off, let's say with a shed, having it right at the property line, and most neighbors don't worry about that. But here we have issues of, I guess, the noise from the pump. I don't know if the pump is any noisier in above ground than in a built-in pool or not. I'm no expert. So it's the extra, and what you're saying, you're proposing this sort of King Solomon approach. I don't know if that's something that the applicant can deal with, rather to rotate, you said, about so that everyone has a, sort of the pump doesn't just adversely impact one neighbor over all other neighbors, which you seem to say is yourself. So I think, appreciate you're not saying you don't want the pool at all, it's only where it should be. But if are you the south side lot line or the rear line or the side? Because one of them I see is only off by 0.05 of a meter. The other one is off by like 1.25 of a meter. I just want to know if I summarized your concern correctly. Ma'am? Is anyone having trouble hearing me?
No, we can hear you properly. The issue is that I'm Ms. Madison.
Okay, anyway, I throw those answers open and let's hear back from the applicant, but that's my concern, my issue that, you know, we have to look at the variances here. One is 0.05 from what's permitted. One is 1.25 from what's permitted from the side lot and the rear yard respectively. It is a bit of an issue because it's a corner lot, so the placement of the pool isn't in your typical position. So if I'd like to get Ms. Madison's response to that. Otherwise, if we can't reach her, let's hear from Mr. Scirocco, I guess.
I just have one question for the neighbor, if I could, and it's just a quick question. Central air at your home? And is it running most of the summer?
Sorry, the neighbor was dialing in through my laptop, so she was disconnected from the laptop.
I just wanted to know if she perhaps was running central air and had all the windows closed and wondered about the noise levels, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, the property is a corner lot.
Yes, that's what I said.
And she's backs on like to the rear.
Yeah,
short
so
portion of the property.
that's why I said she's the one that seems to have, because it's a corner lot, the rear yard sort of is closer to her. She has some suggestion, which I like Mr. Scirocco to respond to, the feasibility of sort of rotating so that the pump is not as close to her. She did mention that. So let's hear from maybe Mr. Scirocco. In the meantime, if she calls you back, Paul, on your laptop or whatever. But Ms. Alderson and I were having, trying to see where, it is an above ground pool and it's not, it is.
Can I just also add, she's at 11 Belfry, and 11 Belfry, there is it's a garage that's up against the fence. It's not the house that's up against that fence. It's the garage. Her garage is up against the fence.
Okay. So anyway, rather than us doing the rebuttal for the applicant, let's let him do it.
Anyway, I'm just saying, if she's at 11 Belfry, I've checked the street, and that's exactly what is up against that fence is a garage.
I guess no one's given us a really great picture of this. Anyway, let's go back to Mr. Scirocco, the homeowner.
Pool location itself. Sorry, can you hear me? I heard it mute and unmute. Sorry. Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so the variances requested are for the location of the pool. The location of the pump is fine where it is. It only has to be 30 centimeters from the property lot line. We currently have it at 90 centimeters from the lot line. We also have an anti-vibration pad underneath the pump, which is not required by the bylaw, because that was raised as a concern a couple of years ago. And so we did put a vibration pad underneath there. So yeah, we've gone over and above, or over and beyond, or above and beyond the requirement of the bylaw for the pump. And even if we were to try and rotate, change the location of the pump, the skimmer and the jet, like just all the piping would then have to be relocated, and that wouldn't be something that we could do without having,
Yeah, okay, and anyway, Mr. Scirocco, very important, it's the placement of the pool and not the pool equipment, and the purpose is what's bothering. Whether you move the pool an extra half a 0.05 of a meter, how much is that in inches?
On one side it would be 2 inches. Yeah, on one side it's 2 inches. Okay. On the other side it's a foot
to the south and a couple of inches to the other line. So that's not going to affect anything. Assuming there's noise or splashing or whatever, it's not going to solve the neighbor's problem. Hopefully there isn't a problem. Seems like you've tried to do what you have to do by installing a pump. I assume you try to get, kids be respectful of, other neighbors. So in any event, committee members, any further questions for Mr. Scirocco?
Just one question. The neighbor on Coney that backs, is actually adjacent to your property, but is on the other street. They're fine with your pool. Is that correct?
Yes, they have absolutely no problem with the location of our pool.
Okay.
David, this one has a quick question as well. Usually I don't ask these questions, but because noise is an issue, noise bylaw officers ever been involved in this issue?
Yes, last summer, this is why the original request was for the fence.
Right.
So last summer, the neighbor did call a bylaw officer who did come to the house, measured the distance to the pump, heard the pump, did not have a concern with the pump at all.
So what you're saying is the noise bylaw officer is satisfied with what you've done.
Yes.
Ready for a motion? Someone prepared to weigh in with a motion?
I am.
Thank you.
I've heard everything. I believe that the variances requested meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act are minor and should be approved.
Thank you. Seconded for Mr. Palmer's motion, Ms. Alderson, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Scirocco, and thank you to Ms. Madison. Have a good summer. Next, our last application is item number 37, 15 Edenbrook Hill. It's for a detached dwelling with an attached garage. We have a revised notice. This matter was deferred from February 23rd, 2022 hearing. Urban Forestry is looking for conditions 1 and 2. We have a cover letter supporting material. Planning is looking for condition of approval in the event of approval for bird-friendly and dark sky compliant light fixtures and window treatments. That's standard condition when you're on a ravine. And like I said, we do have a revised notice highlighted. There's a lot of variances, 14 variances, 9 of them have been revised. The applicant is David Eagleman, the agent for the applicant, as well as we have the neighbors at 9 Cobble Hills and 17 Edenbrook next door registered to speak. That's our last application.
Yes, good afternoon again, Mr. Chair and committee members. Through you, Mr. Chair, if I can just get into my presentation, considering we have some neighbors in opposition. And through you, Mr. Chair, I will note this application was previously deferred from the February 23rd hearing date of this year. The reason for the deferral was just because of an error in the public notice. However, we did take that opportunity of the deferral to consult with the adjacent neighbor at 17 Edenbrook Hill. And before getting into the variances, I would like to note that we have consulted extensively with community planning staff regarding this application and have made revisions to the proposal to their satisfaction. Additionally, we have consulted with the neighbor in objection at 17 Edenbrook Hill and have made further revisions to the proposal in an attempt to address their concerns and satisfy them. Although in my discussions with the neighbor at 17 Edenbrook's planner, they did not specify exactly what they are looking for in terms of reductions to the variances. So we went ahead and made reductions that we felt were satisfactory. However, it is my understanding that they are still not satisfied. I am aware of the recommended conditions from planning staff, and those conditions are acceptable. I will note that transportation staff have no objections, and I am aware of the recommended conditions from both urban forestry as well as the RNFP division of urban forestry, and those conditions are also acceptable. I will note that a number of the variances being requested are a direct result of either the challenging topography of the subject property or the convoluted zoning bylaw regulations that are applicable to the subject property. Regarding the applicable zoning, the subject property is subject to 2 different exception zones within bylaw 569/2013, and one of those provisions within one of those exceptions has been appealed, which necessitates us getting variances to both the in effect and appealed variance. So both of those factors contribute to the number of variances that we are requesting and that are in front of you today. And for time's sake, I will keep my presentation brief and will just address the variances that have been raised as concerning to the neighbor at 17 Edenbrook. So regarding variance number 3, The proposed FSI of 0.38 times the lot area will result in only an additional 39.82 square meters or 428.62 square feet, which will be spread over 2 floors. The proposal will include a sloped roof design and is compliant with the maximum permitted length, depth, and lot coverage, which demonstrates that the proposed FSI is in keeping with the existing character of the neighborhood and will have little to no impact further than what is contemplated by the bylaw. This area consists of very large lots with very large homes, and there have been other approvals for FSI within the neighborhood, similar to or much larger than what is being proposed through this application, such as 5 Edenbrook Hill approved at 0.49 times or 436.07 square meters, 19 Edenbrook Hill approved at 655.7 square meters, 20 Edenbrook Hill approved at 752.4 square meters, 45 Edenbrook Hill approved at 538.75 square meters, and 52 Edenbrook Hill approved at 941.5 square meters.
Do you have the equivalent TFAs? Because most of us look at that, the 0.38 versus 0.35, what those numbers are at.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I don't have those FSI numbers because those variances, just to explain, those variances were under a former bylaw, so they only listed the actual GFA, and I do think it is appropriate to look at the GFA because that is more telling of what the actual massing is. Regarding variance number 6, this variance is largely a result of the meandering front lot line and the tapered lot configuration, which tapers towards the rear of the property. Due to the unique front lot line, the lot frontage from a bylaw perspective is measured 9 meters back from the actual front lot line and perpendicular to a line drawn down the middle of the property. As a result of this, the lot frontage from a bylaw perspective is 5.06 meters less than the actual frontage of the subject property at the street, which is 28.92 meters. Thus, if the actual lot frontage of the subject property were to be considered to be the lot frontage from a bylaw perspective, the proposal would be compliant with this requirement. Variance number 7 and 8. Both of these variances pertain to the proposed height, and I will deal with both variances together. The proposed height variances are largely a result of the unique grading condition on the subject property, which has resulted in an established grade that is 0.88 meters lower than the actual grade on the subject property. As a result of this, 0.88 meters of the proposed height will be below grade, and the proposed dwelling will actually be at a height of 9.65 meters as perceived from the actual grade, which is only 15 centimeters greater than what is permitted by the bylaw. Additionally, the proposed sloped roof design is in keeping with the existing character, and the proposed building height will have little to no impact further than what is already contemplated by the bylaw. Regarding variance number 9 and 10, both of these variances pertain to the side exterior main wall height, and I will deal with both together. Similar to the height variances, these variances are largely required due to the grading condition of the subject property, and due to the grading condition, 0.88 meters of the proposed side exterior main wall height will be below grade, and the proposed dwelling will have a side exterior main wall height of 7.67 meters from the actual grade, which is only 67 centimeters greater than what is permitted by the bylaw.
Sorry to
Moreover,
interrupt, Mr. Egelman. You're at 6 minutes and 30 seconds at present.
Okay, I was done with all my justification anyway, because those were just the variances of concern. So through you, Mr. Chair, I believe this application represents good planning and meets the 4 tests under section 45(1).
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ringley. Any questions for Mr. Ringley before we hear from the 2 neighbors? First neighbor is William McDonald of 9 Cobble Hills. And then we have David Ashbourne, the consultant for the neighbor at 17 Edenbrook Hill next door.
I have one question, if I may, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to get the justification for the side yard setbacks, given it's a new build.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So there are actually 3 variances pertaining to the side yard setbacks, which once again goes back to the convoluted zoning applicable to the property. And the proposed side yard setbacks of 1.28 meters on the west and 1.94 meters on the east are only for pinch points along both sides of the dwelling. For a majority of the west side of the dwelling, the proposed side yard setback is actually 1.8 meters. And for the east side, a large portion of the proposed side yard setback is 2 meters or greater and is 2.4 meters at its widest point. Thus, a majority of the west side of the dwelling is only 30 centimeters less than the largest required side yard setback of 2.1 meters, and a large portion of the east side of the dwelling is compliant.
I'm satisfied. That's good. Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Eagleman, or we'll hear from the neighbors? Okay, the first neighbor is Willie McDonald at 9 Cobble Hills.
Hello, everybody. Do you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. We live at 9 Cobble Hills, which is northeast of 15 Edenbrook Hill. Our immediate neighbors to our south, 7 Cobble Hills, backs immediately onto 15 Edenbrook Hill. But 15 Edenbrook Hill is clearly in line with our sight lines from our backyard. Our issue is with variances 7 and 8. So it may have been partially addressed. Just want to still make my comments. The 15 Edenbrook Hill variance proposes 1.18 meters higher than maximum allowed. And the property, the back of our house, slopes aggressively upwards, with the houses behind our home appearing high on top of the hill. The large houses behind us, for example, 17 Edenbrook Hill, already tower above our home, affecting our view, particularly in the winter months. And we feel strongly that the maximum height allowed appears to be more than enough. An additional 1.18 meters over and above seemed excessive. So we respectfully request that this variance is denied. Thank you for your time. The only other comment I'd make is it's possible that what was just addressed a moment ago might help deal with that. We really don't want to see a house that's towering above 17 Edenbrook Hill, which is already quite a tall house from our view.
Thank you, sir. So basically, variances 7 may deal with the height, overall at 10.68, whereas 9.5 is permitted. So you're saying 17 is already, because 17 is good segue. The next speaker here coming here with a consultant with opposition. So you're saying perhaps we'll find out how high their house is, so you'll be able to gauge, provided the topography is the same between 17 and 15 in relation to yours, as to how high this is going to be. Either not as high or higher than the one at 17, which you say already is towering.
Yeah, that would be my main issue is if it's the same height or less, we're okay with it. If it's taller, it's a problem for us because already.
Okay, so stand by, because we're going to hear from the consultant for your neighbor at 17, or the applicant's neighbor at 17 across from you. And then Mr. Eagleman will respond to your concerns as on that. Okay, any questions though before we do that for Mr. McDonald? Okay, so let's hear from David Ashbourne on behalf of the neighbors at 17.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is David Ashbourne. I'm a registered planner here on behalf of 17 Edenbrook Hill, the owners Heather McKean and Edward Gettings. I just want to predicate my opposition on 2 things. Number one, contrary to Mr. Eagleman's speech to the committee, there has been a complete lack of initiative from the applicant and the planner's applicant with regard to reaching out to us to deal with the concerns. Mr. Eagleman did not reach out contrary to the committee's wishes after the February 23rd meeting. It was something that was initiated by me. And if it weren't for that, we likely would not have spoken with regard to our concerns. And I also note that this has been in the work for quite some time. And the owner of the property, the applicant, has not reached out to the owners of 17 Edenbrook. I also note that the revisions that Mr. Eagleman stated were completely negligible the height was less than half a foot, and the GFA reduction was about 6 square meters, which had no impact to the FSI. I also want to note that the application in general lacks overall clarity, has inaccuracies and inconsistencies. For example, in the planning documents that were submitted to the committee, what is stated as of right is for GFA is listed at 721 GFA with an FSI of 0.45, FSI, whereas as of right, it's actually 565 GFA with 0.35 FSI as of right. Moreover, the cardinal directions throughout the application are completely a mess. This makes the application extremely hard to understand where the variances are applicable to. And these these inconsistencies, inaccuracies, lacks of clarity are not in keeping with the public interest, as it is quite objectively hard to understand the nature and the location of the variances that are being requested. So in addition to my letter that was submitted to the committee, I won't be overly redundant to that effect, but I would like to note that despite Mr. Eagleman's comments regarding the 14 variances that are requested and the convoluted or perceptively convoluted nature of those variances, typically speaking, this type of application would be dealt with through an amendment process where planning staff would have significantly more opportunity to speak to the applicant. And we note that. We understand that variances are not judged on the number of variances, but in this instance, we certainly do think that this would be better suited within the amendment process rather than variance. And we also note that this is a completely new build that does not require the quantum of variances that are being requested here. We also note that the drainage and grading on the property, there's a complete lack of information in the application documents regarding this. This has not been well articulated within the planning documents and is quite concerning because it does have an effect specifically with water runoff to our client's property. And I know from looking at the RNFP comments, they also have a very similar concern with the grading and do not support the grade change of the 1.2 meters. Our client is very concerned with the overall mass of the application itself. To Mr. McDonald's point, our applicant's house is as of right in terms of the zoning bylaw, and the application in front of you today is a departure of the bylaw in terms of height of a full meter above what is permitted as of right by the bylaw. Moreover, this is an undersized lot. There is no reason why a 3-car garage would be acceptable on a lot of this size. We have looked at this property and surrounding neighborhoods extensively, and there is no example of this type of built form within the area, this type of mass. So in light of all of these points, we strongly encourage the committee recommend refusal of the application on the basis that it does not meet the 4 tests. Moreover, we ask that if the applicant does choose to go forward with this application in a future date, that it is dealt with through the amendment process and not the variance process, and that all plans are checked for consistency and accuracy before being submitted, as it is not in keeping with the public interest, and that the information regarding drainage, grading, and the retaining walls be included on any future submission for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you know, is this property, is this subject to site plan, this area, or?
Off the top of my head, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure, but I would assume that it would be, yes.
And also you're telling us that your client's house complies with the bylaw in terms of the gross floor area and the heights?
To my knowledge, yes.
To your knowledge? What would be your knowledge? Either you know or you don't know.
What I have been told by my client is yes, it does comply.
Okay.
My client's property was subject to an application in 2003 for 2 very minor variances, which were accepted.
Okay. And okay, so does anyone else have any questions for the neighbor's consultant, Mr. Ashbourne, based on his submission and his written report? And if not, let's go back to the applicant, Mr. Eagleman, for his rebuttal, including some pretty, allegations of misleading, inaccuracies, et cetera, et cetera. So let's put that back into Mr. Eagleman's court. Respond. Although
Yes.
I'll ask a question of Mr. Ashbourne first before we let him go. Mr. Ashbourne, you're a professional planner. You do these type of applications. You come to committee for people doing additions and building new houses.
Correct.
Is that what you do? You sometimes appear before us, I believe. Have
do.
you ever perceived by what you're suggesting be done here, that they should not proceed through variances and proceed through an amendment to the bylaw?
Mr. Chair, that's obviously to the discretion of planning staff, but yes, in my tenure as a planner, I have seen when this number of variances are requested, that this is brought before planning staff, or at least a recommendation.
Yeah, okay, but I've seen, we've been doing you're over a meter on height. It's a meter in height, but no one going the meter height goes for that type of an application. They're over, maybe 50 square meters and over 2 floors. I think you said 426 square feet over 2 floors, 213 per floor on a lot this size. Going for a amendment to the bylaw. I don't know. Anyway, I'll give it back to Mr. Eagleman to respond to your concerns. Thank you. Mr. Eagleman, 5 minutes.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. First, I will address Mr. McDonald's concern with the height. As I noted in my presentation, the established grade on the subject property due to the grading condition, the unique topography of the site is 0.88 meters below the finished grade. So the actual dwelling will be perceived to be at a height of 9.65 meters, which is only 15 centimeters above what is permitted as of right. So that's my response in regards to the height. And in regards to Mr. Ashbourne's comments, I will first note that I don't really appreciate the comments he made about my lack of communication. I did advise the owner to reach out to the neighbor at 17 Edenbrook because that is typically how we do it, and it is more appropriate for the owner to reach out because they do have that neighborhood connection. My client has advised me that the owners do not live at 17 Edenbrook. While I cannot confirm this, that is what he told me. And then, despite that, I was aware of Mr. Ashbourne's concerns, or his client's concerns, because he did submit a letter to the original application. So I was well aware of his concerns. And then the application was not deferred to consult with neighbors. It was deferred purely because of an error on the public notice. And then once Mr. Ashbourne did reach out to me, we had a very amicable conversation, which I am a little taken aback by his comments right now, because we did have an amicable conversation, and I did ask him what his client's concerns were. He raised to me that it was just the FSI and the height, and so I asked him specifically to tell me what his clients are looking for us to come down to, and he did not specify. So I had to take that information back to my client and say, look, we they have concerns with this, let's make reductions. They didn't specify what they want it reduced to, so we made the reductions that we felt were appropriate. And the FSI is already very close to compliance, so there is very little room for us to reduce without going to compliance. In regards to the inaccuracies and inconsistencies on the plans, I will note that, the architects do their best to interpret the bylaws and provide these statistics on the plan. Sometimes they make interpretations that don't align with what a zoning examiner may provide or interpret. So, all the information was provided. There was no concerns from C of A staff that we provided inaccurate or misleading information. We worked with planning staff and satisfied them. And this area is the comment regarding this going through a zoning bylaw amendment, I find very surprising. This is a single detached dwelling in a neighborhood with single detached dwellings. So I don't see how, and committee staff did not raise, nor did planning staff raise concerns that this has to go through a zoning bylaw amendment. And in regards to, the drainage and grading, as you know, you all are well aware that those issues are not dealt with through the committee. And regarding RNFP's comment, we are aware of it. We are working with RNFP, and should the committee approve this application today, we will still need a permit from Urban Forestry and RNFP division. So we will have to work through with them to come up with a solution that works and that is satisfactory to them. So my last comment will just be that this area is full of large lots. The subject property is not an undersized lot. It is a large lot, and there are very large dwellings in this neighborhood. As I mentioned in my presentation, there is a dwelling on the street that has a GFA of 941 square meters, and our variance is only 39.82 square meters above what is permitted as of right. So through you, Mr. Chair, those are my submissions, and I leave it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Eagleman, for your submissions. And I was going to point out the same thing to this the gentleman, your colleague, your confrere, your fellow planner, being a very zealous advocate for his client, don't want to ruin his reputation for one client. So I think he took those allegations quite seriously. And as we stated, community planning did not say to consult. And in fact, once a client gets a consultant, I wouldn't, certainly for you to approach his client would have been inappropriate. Maybe and his client and their client don't talk. But once he's sort of plannered up or lawyered up, as per, if you watch Better Call Saul, he retained a consultant, and then the communication should go through the consultants. Certainly would have been inappropriate for you to contact his client at that point. So thank you for clearing up some of those issues. Committee members, any further questions for either of the two speakers, Mr. McDonald or Mr. Ashbourne, or for Mr. Eagleman, or someone ready for a motion? And I'll point out that planning had their only concern is that having the bird-friendly and dark sky compliant conditions. They otherwise voice no concern with this application. Any other questions?
Sorry, are we into a motion now?
Yes, unless there's any follow-up questions.
No, I'll wait. If there are any other questions, I'll wait for my motion. Any questions from any other members? No. Okay, so this is a complicated proposal because there's many variances, but the variances in my mind suffer from site grading condition, established grade condition, and pinch points. And it is a large lot with large building, and the neighborhood is of that character. So I would like to move for approval of the variances based on the revised waiver we received. And there are conditions from forestry to conditions from forestry. Were the conditions from transportation? No, planning. Planning had the conditions for bird friendly. And what was the other one? Sorry, I've lost my notes.
Sky compliant.
Yes.
Dark sky compliant lights fixtures.
Yeah. So those are the two
Light fixtures, yeah.
From planning. Yep. And so I move for approval of the variances.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo.
Happy to second that motion.
All in favor? Application is unanimously approved. Thank you to the speakers, Mr. Ashbourne, Mr. McDonald, and Mr. Eagleman. And can I have the most important motion of the afternoon or evening?
Motion to adjourn. I'll make that motion.
It's 6:01. We're into the evening, seconded by Mr. Comeric. Thank you. And we'll see you all again next time. Thank you.
Good
as
night,
always,
everyone.
to our,
Thank you very much.
dedicated and hardworking and very competent staff over at the dealing with
Yes.
all of our problems. And 6 o'clock isn't bad considering how late we started.
Exactly. I agree.
Okay. Be well.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
everyone. Good night.
Bye, Barb.